Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. Gonna have a fun show for you. We're missing out on Aaron because he's at MegaCon. Drew's at MegaCon. I think a lot of the Think Critical family are over there, or at least down there in Orlando, having a good time. Of course, we'll all be in Dallas Fan Expo. Dylan, we forgot to tell you about this.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
Why would we do that? I feel so bad about it, but we've been planning this for like a year or something. But I booked my tickets this week. I will be in Dallas for Dallas Fan Expo.
I think I'm gonna look at my schedule after this and see if I can figure out a way to go, because that'd be fun.
It's the very end of May, first day of June, right? Something like that.
What Google says.
I think it's the weekend
May
before
30th through June 1st.
Yep.
Yeah. 4 days. So Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon.
Planning on being there Friday
Pack a
and
lunch.
Saturday.
Bring your deodorant, please. People stink.
Very nice.
People get ripe.
And Jim, welcome back to the channel. You're replacing Aaron Sparrow this week. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll turn my mic up real high, and then I'll turn it real low, and then I will fit right in. Yes. Good.
So you're still with us, but did you almost die this week? It sounded like you almost had a very bad accident.
I've had a couple really bad accidents, but I not really. What are you talking about? I'm trying to.
You said that you were being handed something and you almost fell downstairs.
Oh yeah. No, I ran into something, and like my wife had a thing over the banister, and I ran up the stairs and I hit it, and then kind of grabbed onto it, which pulled it down on me. It was like this big mattress thing,
like
and
a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah. And then I did almost fall, and then I started getting yelled at by everybody. And I said, why am I getting yelled at about something that happens as normal as me putting on shoes? And they just said they're annoyed with me. So
stop trying to break into Kevin McAllister's house.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
I have that. It seems like that every day, but it's because people change things around. I'm always in a hurry. That happened, but
so it's like rearranging the house.
So
yeah, it's like I'm blind, and yeah, I'm running through things and I don't pay attention. I can't see. So yeah, I had a little bit of problems.
You should be safer now that your kids aren't little, because I am like at risk because of Legos and little cars.
Yeah, that used to be a problem.
Yeah.
With all my kids, that was, and even just kids themselves. I had 5 kids, so I'd run through. You step on one's head, you slip and fall, and things like that. Yeah, it was trouble. They always set me up.
So how's everything going, Jim? We haven't seen you in a while. Everything going good? We've had fun on our Hot or Not podcast, obviously.
Yeah, and we even talked some NFL. That was crazy.
We did a Super Bowl preview, which will be going up here on the YouTube channel later this evening, because there is no Hot or Not show because Drew was at MegaCon, but there was literally only one comic that I could, in good conscience, recommend, and that was TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures. The
TMNT said that was crazy. This week, our Hot or Not was renamed Not. The Not podcast.
Absolute Not.
Since I've been on, comics haven't been so great, but it's what it is.
Every once in a while you get a good week where you're recommending like 8 or 9 books.
Well, not me.
Well,
but also I realized on the comics channel, putting up some podcasts and things like that, I every video that goes up, I lose like 5 subscribers. So I think I'm doing a good job.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it right is what is happening. But
people are coming away with the definitive answer, whether they like you or don't like you. That's what you want.
Yeah, I guess there's no in between. And all the people who had comments, even on this show, about how awful I am, they could suck it. So there you go. I'm back.
Oh, Jim's amazing.
So they can suck it is what they can do. There'll be some in this one. They just all pop up. It's amazing.
We've got a very international chat already. We got people from Belgium, people in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
We haven't even gotten Federico. He's in Italy. We're gonna have the entire EU represented soon.
Callum's in Australia.
Absolutely, dude.
That's
fun.
But
I'm glad you're healthy and doing well, Jim. Are you excited for the big game this weekend?
Yeah, I am. We had our predictions. I won't even tell people what we predicted, but I think that if they listen to the show, which I hope they do, they will just hear me hem and haw about trying to convince myself that the Eagles will win, which in my heart I want them to, but I'm just worried. I'm worried, and I'm worried more about just getting Mahomes, and at the end I won't even say cheating, but some last.
You don't want to get Mahomes?
Heroics. No, I don't. I don't want to get Swiftied or Mahomied or Kelsey'd or anything. I just want to win, but we'll see. We'll see. Also, I realized my voice sounds like crap this morning. I just woke up. I woke up like 2 seconds ago, so hopefully I'll feel a little better. I'm drinking tea, which I usually don't. I'm out of coffee, so for those.
We've also got South Africa in the chats, and I think Eodius. I know Eodius is from Asia. For some reason, I feel like it's Korea, but I might be wrong on that one. But we've got a very international flavor. Love it.
Love it. International.
And we do have an international man of mystery return to the channel. We got Dylan, the real comic book gamer. How you doing, Dylan? Welcome back.
I'm doing good, other than, like you guys already said, this wasn't a great week for comics.
Not a good week.
Yeah. This is rough.
So we had the return of John Kent, as Superboy this week. In Shazam. Did you read it?
Nope. Didn't touch Shazam.
That. It's Singapore. I'm sorry. Eodius is from Singapore. I'm sorry about that. I knew it was in Asia. But don't read Shazam. Doc and I read it for you. You'll have your worst of the week up on Monday. Unless you're a Patreon backer, you'll have it up tomorrow morning. And we've got a fully unedited review of that bad boy. But otherwise, Superman's going pretty good.
Yeah, Superman's doing pretty well right now. Didn't care for Absolute Superman, but I haven't cared for Absolute Superman in a while, so.
So you liked it like the first issue, but I think it's getting worse as well.
I felt like it's gotten worse each time, but I didn't really care for the first issue either. So, but at the first issue, I had some optimism a little bit. Like, who knows? Maybe something will happen. And then it's just.
So do you think it makes Lois Lane look like a real hero when she's interrogating a guy and makes him blow a cattle prod and then takes his fingers and breaks them in half because she doesn't like him?
No, not at all. But that's just to
psychotic.
show how hardcore and badass she is. That's what that's.
Well, it makes me think that she's a fucking serial killer.
Oh yeah, it seems like she's a psychopath, but he's one of the peacemakers, so he deserves it because he's such a bad guy. But yeah, it's. I don't care for this version of Lois at all. I don't care for the haircut. I don't care for anything about her.
Yeah. What a waste of Rafa Sandoval. He's one of their really good artists too. They can keep up with a monthly book. Yeah,
that's what I was about to say. Like, it's not like Nick Dragotta where after 3 issues we got to get a fill-in. It's like we still got him each time, but he gets thrown on this crap. I don't like this Superman either. He's not likable either.
Well, there's nothing really to him. Did you notice that the Tom King S9 panel fucking grids with the stupid?
Yes. It immediately made me think Heroes in Crisis because it's the same background than just the people talking, and then all of them being like, "Yeah, we hope Superman murders everyone for us." It's like, oh, this guy's really inspiring hope right now.
All right, so Dylan, we've got a Superman movie coming out. We've had 2 teasers that have come out. We finally got the first Fantastic Four trailer. People are saying Fantastic Four looks better than Superman. Where are you coming in on this?
Well, I've never really given a shit about the Fantastic Four ever. So I thought the trailer was good, but I still never cared about the Fantastic Four. Also, that's fully Pedro Pascal, not Reed Richards. Like, make him shave at least. I think that's stupid. But yeah, I'm far more interested in Superman than Fantastic Four. I don't really care. So we'll see. Hopefully,
should we do the Henry Cavill remove it digitally?
Oh man, that would be hilarious if they did that.
Oh man,
I'd be down.
I really like the vibes of that Fantastic Four movie.
It was
there
a
are
good
things
trailer
about it that I don't like, but I'm like, man, it looks like Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it was a good trailer, but also Marvel's done that a lot to where it'll be like, oh man, this trailer's pretty good, and then you go see the movie, and it's like, oh, this is not like the trailer at all. So the trailer department is not the problem. Yeah, the trailer department's not the problem over there at Disney. Like, they did that with all the Star Wars movies, where it's like, man, this the Force Awakens Star Wars trailer is incredible. It's so good, and then you watch the movie, and it's not that at all.
The opening scene in Force Awakens is still pretty damn good. When Kylo Ren stops the bolt in midair, like, oh shit, and then you're like, oh no, he's a whiny bitch.
Yeah, and then you quickly get to Finn crying over one of his coworkers dying, and then proceeding to murder all of his coworkers 10 minutes after that. So, yeah.
There was a Kylo Ren comic book this week. Did you read that?
No, I saw your tweet about it though, and so it didn't look too good.
The art looked nice.
The art is fine. The Luke Ross art. He's done a lot of Star Wars comic books, but it's just a reminder about how much you hated Kylo Ren. Is what it felt
Such
like.
a waste. It's such a waste.
And they call it
because-
Legacy of Vader, so you think it's a Darth Vader comic book. He's not even in it, of course. Just a melted helmet.
That's such a waste because Adam Driver was like one of the better parts of those movies, but they ruined his character. Like saying they, I thought in the first movie he was okay up until the interrogation scene because then he's the interrogator, but he starts crying, which is never a good sign in interrogation. When you're the one that's running it and then you start crying, that's when you know things are going downhill.
Yeah. So interesting stuff here. Anything people should know about going on with the streaming or the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I just did a video showing off Spider-Man mod and Arkham Knight and just talking about Spider-Man. Is a really cool mod where like the suit in it is really cool. But yeah, I just basically talk
Does
all
he
things
shoot webs
Spider-Man in
or
the
is
video.
he still doing a batarang?
No, he doesn't shoot webs, but he's got the web wings when he glides, which is really cool. So yeah,
Well,
it's
that
a cool
makes sense.
detail on that one. Yeah.
Jim, I forgot to ask, is there anything people should be looking out for Sus Records or Weird Science YouTube? Or did Jim leave us? He might have just
What? No.
Did you adios?
I was looking at the comments and then he said that. No, just that I've been putting up more of our podcast. I ended up putting up our DC Comics podcast after a while, and people seem to think that we took like a 6-month hiatus, which we did not. I guess people aren't listening to podcasts, but just the podcast and some videos. Just put up an Off-World Batman Off-World video, and we do a live stream of the Absolute books each time one comes out. We did that last night as well for Superman. But that's about it.
Right.
And Sus
Dylan,
Records. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dirty songs.
Dirty
Ruling the
songs.
airwaves.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Shadow
forgot
ban till the end of time.
I forgot to mention this to you, Dylan. You were really enjoying Batman Off-World. I was as well. Jason Aaron, Doug Mankey. This final issue was not what I was looking for.
Oh, I liked the final issue. I thought the final issue was good.
Yeah, you thought that the one dude's voice killed 12 billion people all at one time, but Batman could take it?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous, but that's great for this book. I like the Batman. It shows the
Batman
human spirit,
tells his
dude.
own story and it breaks him down mentally. He's like, you were an orphan?
Yeah, screw all these other aliens. Shows humanity on top. That we can take it, they can't. I love that. That's great. I like that. I liked when Batman like just got up, like took it, and then got up and whispered in his ear. I wish he would have left it vague what he told him, though. I kind of hated that he told us what he told him, because that kind of ruins it a little bit. If he would have just left it vague, it's like, oh, what messed up things did he tell?
Yeah, I think he bored him to death. Is why he ended up. He's like going through his whole story.
I went through therapy from the ages of 7 to 12.
And then I was in bed with the Catwomans.
Leslie Tompkins really got me through some hard times. The guy's like, stop.
And I found out I had a brother like 7 times. But it wasn't true.
Oh, yeah. Batman was bad this week. We've also got Gabe from Comical Opinions and Weird Sites. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm all right. Good morning. How are you? Are you looking forward to the Kansas City Chiefs losing tomorrow afternoon?
Absolutely. I'm fully prepared for that. But last time you were on the channel, you had 999 subscribers.
Yes, we have well exceeded that number. So thank you very much for everyone who is choosing to subscribe and participate. I appreciate that very much. Onward and upward. We're moving forward, full steam ahead. Reviews, and more reviews. And I'm looking forward to talking about comics today, especially the main topic, which is diamond distribution, which is one of my favorite topics these days for obvious reasons. And no, I did not like Absolute Superman either.
When I saw you get to 1,000 on Comical Opinions, I went to unsubscribe.
I did.
Oh, thank you.
Because I didn't feel like you'd earned it.
Appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
But then I decided, I got distracted by chicken nuggets, and it didn't happen. But,
I didn't get distracted.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Jim's the one that put you under.
I under, and then put him over and wanted applause.
Yeah, no, I actually, yes, it was Aaron that put me over. But I think he just really opened the floodgates. And so, yeah, a lot more people have come along. So I appreciate it. Channel's growing, more attention's being had, and looking forward to doing more. We're here to make people happy. Well, maybe happy is not the right word. We're here to give people the unvarnished truth about the quality of comics that are coming out these days. Well, we can have some fun doing it, but yeah, there are probably a lot of comic creators that aren't too happy with a channel like mine growing. So we'll see how that pans out.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Did you enjoy this week in comic books?
I wrote down, as I do every single time I attend the show, my recommendation list, it is just big enough to occupy a small square on a small Post-it, and none of those titles are Marvel or DC. So that should tell you exactly how much I love the Week in Comics. I mean, some of them were kind of okay, but yeah, nothing I would say, yeah, go get this stuff.
I thought the best DC book was Batgirl.
Batgirl was okay, but the story is just sort of like, I hate to say that it doesn't matter, but it sort of doesn't matter just because it's sort of getting you back to over. Yeah, it's just the same story over and over again. It's just sort of getting you back to her personality, which really took a hit when they were doing Batgirls under Coolness. So this is more sort of like bringing her back to more of a tried and true personality, which is good. But at the same time, the story is just kind of like, whatever. Did not like Absolute Superman. I think that series has gone downhill. And when you look at the ICV2 numbers, which I know are not very imperfect, it's just a comparative trend analysis at best, if you want to call it that. But if you look at that sales list, you notice that Absolute Superman dropped well behind Batman and Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman, I really don't like.
The reason is because that particular issue was released on January 1st, and that chart didn't start till January 5, so it doesn't include the first 4 days of sales.
But I suspect it's not going to catch up as much as people think it is, just because I'm getting that same feedback, which is, why are we spending so much time on Krypton? Why are we spending so much time on Lois Lane? Why are we spending so much time on the past? We're 4 issues in, and we really have not spent any time with the main character, which is a mind-bogglingly weird creative choice from Jason.
No idea who Absolute Superman is. I don't even know what his motivation is.
Though with Gabe, it's still top 10. So don't get too praised. It's what do you? It's number 10. What are you talking about? Nah.
No, you say with 10. with me, not
no,
with me.
No, I'm saying in general. You're saying like you're acting as if it's like number 50. It's still 10 and 5 days not counted. You're sus.
You said with Gabe. I'm using your words against you. There, take that.
Sus.
We did
this. If I knew this guy was on, I wouldn't come back.
Wicked sus.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to
tell me.
You back out.
This is how we work out our reviews every single week.
Exactly.
Don't take the break.
Exactly.
This is how they work out the reviews. Gabe's like, well, I know that we've got like the finale of Batman coming up, but we do have
Adam
Justice
Project.
League, the Adam Project.
Yeah,
the Adam Project.
That first? It's like, what? Why are you even reviewing that? No one cares about that.
Random number generator would pick better comics than he picks these.
This is how it works out. This is how it works out. I like, okay, we've got this, and this, and this. I can probably do those. Does anybody want to take anything else? No.
No. There is nobody else. That's good.
There is nobody else. Nobody wants.
You got to rack and stack the hottest stuff, and by the end of the week, you don't get to the Adam Project because it's insignificant.
The first issue of Hush 2, or maybe I don't even know what else would be.
The first all along the Watchtower number 3.
Like, exactly.
No, it'll be the first issue.
Any sparks.
It'll be the first issue of Hush 2 or the Harley Quinn Fartacular.
Yeah, Harley Quinn.
Well, that might be an audience for ridicule on the Harley Quinn book.
Yeah. Just Harley Quinn in general.
Every single week. That's what it's like every single week.
Yes.
Gabe, do you have any videos that people should be looking out for that you're particularly proud of or that are relatively new?
I mean, we're putting out video reviews every single week, usually Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but just because we're trying to kind of keep it matched up with the new release Wednesdays. But, given what's going to happen within the next couple months, that may change because who knows when stuff is going to come out anymore. Because I see publishers are either going to fall by the wayside, they're going to go with Lunar Penguin. I know I'm getting ahead, or they're going to start just doing direct to consumer. In which case, there will not be a Wednesday Warrior anymore. And very interested to see how that plays out.
There you go. So, we've also got the Sultan of Soup himself, Rev Sully.
Hi.
Boston's finest, the sussest takes in all of comic books.
Indeed, yeah. I'm a Wednesday warrior. I go to my local comic shop every Wednesday and get my pull list. And so this is going to impact me.
This is a bags and boards week because you're like, I got extra money because there's no books to buy.
It is the week in comics, as in WEAK week in comics. I mean, I only got 2 funny books on my pull list this week, and only one of them were good. Yeah. Yikes.
Only one of them was good. What would you consider good?
Is The Sacrificers.
Oh, well, that makes sense. It probably was a good book. I didn't get a read. I didn't get a review copy of that one, so I hadn't kind of read it yet.
Man, it's good stuff, man.
Hit me up and I'll get you one if you want.
But the other one was Absolute Superman 4, and I'm thinking of dropping this. It's on my pull list. I wanted to give it a chance. I have given it.
You gave it a chance.
It's chance, and this is not a fun book. It's beautiful. It's got some great panels. It's full of action. This is what you really want a superhero comic book to be. But where is the superhero? Where's the aspiration? Where's the fun? The first page, you open it up, and there's a 9-panel grid of faces. And I don't even think Dave Gibbons anymore. I think Tom King. And that's it turned me off just opening up the book this week. I'm like, oh, God, here we go with the Tom King grid. Poof.
So what are you doing to get over this stuff? You still cooking? What'd you make this week? You make a chowder?
I didn't make the chowder, but I'm tuning in during the week. I think I'm making the soup a few times during the week. Some nice New England specials. Maybe some, actually we had a really good corn chowder this week with bacon. It was outstanding. I don't know, it was a cold day and we're expecting a snowstorm, so it's full on winter here in Boston, Massachusetts, USA.
We got some nice pork lager this week because it's raining. My wife always wants soup when it's raining. So
cold day, hot soup. It's a mantra of my business, But yeah, totally. I mean, don't waste your time on Absolute Superman. I wish I chose Absolute Batman because at least the art in that is really fun. That has a sense of fun, and there you go. You had me at bacon.
We got Yul Carter in the house. I reached out to you. He totally ignored me. I think he's mad at me or something.
Oh my goodness!
Me, so maybe he's not mad at me.
Hope not.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that I'm the backup when Yul says no?
No. Jim was the backup when Yul said no.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you.
I knew it.
Don't feel that way, Jim.
Well, I told you before. Don't even call me. Said lose my number. So I'm doing this begrudgingly. So all you haters can suck it. There you go. Yeah, I wasn't going to come on, but I did. You needed help, so
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Last but not least, we do have the doc himself. You and I have already reviewed Shazam. Not very fun book, but we did have a really awesome conversation about American values in comic books and how they disappear.
Yes, we did. For those of you interested, that'll be up on the Patreon Monday.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. All right.
Afternoon on the YouTube.
All
edited
right.
version.
Yeah, I mean, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit today, but had a long conversation about the lack of Americanism in the quintessentially American mythology that is superhero comics.
Man, Yul's trying to make it up to me. He just said, "Go Chiefs." You are good. You are a scholar and a gentleman, sir. I like to see you on the right side of history.
Well, I think that's because the Rams aren't there, or the Niners, and also it's unlikely that Kansas City will riot if they win.
That's the problem. If Philadelphia wins, they might burn their own city down celebrating.
If they lose, they'll burn their own city down.
I'm burning my house down either way. I don't give a crap. I'll start yelling about Tomlin.
That's a good start.
Everybody docks at his house, be like, "Fuck these tarot cards and comics." He lights his basement on
my
fire.
Favorite two things.
Yep.
Go on, Titty Howard.
Yep, Titty Howard and Mike Tomlin.
It's my favorites.
We haven't had a good doc like freakout over Titty Howard in a while, but she's not really writing any books for anybody anymore.
She doesn't matter currently, so why would I get mad about her? Currently, I'm getting exactly what I want from her. Nothing. Her not existing in comics. It's a wonderful thing. It makes the comic industry incrementally better.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some Thinking Critical Patreon. If you are interested in supporting the channel, help us keep the lights on. We do have the Patreon. There's a link in the video description. You get a superhero name. You get a city to protect. You get to be a part of the family. And you get awesome podcasts, whether it be the Hot or Not podcast with Jim, the Doc Unfiltered, or the Q&A with Doc. We've also got the Sparrows, or I guess the Geek Fix with Aaron Sparrow every week. Lots of fun stuff going on there. And welcome to the family, JT, a.k.a. Stormbow, the protector of Tempest Landing, Hope you're enjoying all the stuff going on Thinking Critical Patreon. You also get all the audio files of every video I put up. If you want to listen to them like on Spotify or whatever, that is a great way to do it. Having lots of fun, and I do appreciate you supporting us, brother. We've also got some super chats. Adam Frey, EAGLES, Eagles. If we don't win, Jim will be sad. Jim's going to be sad no matter what. He's still breathing.
Yep.
Jim is Jim.
But if you're the mayor,
and do it all.
But if you're the mayor, it's ELGESES.
Yeah.
So the Philadelphia mayor couldn't spell Eagles.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I need to know. I'm on the right side of history on this one.
I mean, they throw batteries at Santa still, so.
Jim is not.
That was like 40 years ago. Are we still talking
so
about?
long? And I love now. It's like they threw acid at the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
Like it changes every time.
Yeah,
I can tell that Gabe
honest.
has gotten the same fucking talking to that I've gotten from Jim.
Listen, let's be honest. Santa had it coming. I'm just, let's be honest about that.
Now cheering as Michael Irvin laid paralyzed on the turf. That was pretty bad. But
Gabe,
he
didn't give Gabe the USS flag in 1986. Santa had it coming.
Santa had it coming.
Galb says, I'll probably get talked about, but Fantastic Four, I'm not holding my breath because I'm getting Ant-Man 3 vibes because they do a MODOK on Galactus.
Oh, do they?
Do they?
I don't think they'll make him a complete joke. I don't think they'll do that to Galactus, but who knows? It's Marvel.
I'm really hoping they learn their lesson from Quantumania. That would be a huge mistake if they do that.
Yeah.
I liked seeing the shadow. It was cool in the back of his head. And it
good.
wasn't a big fucking cloud. It was actually
a swarm of
Yeah, the fact that we actually get a Galactus-shaped Galactus, which is a weird sentence to utter, it's significantly an improvement over the cloud. Or in fairness, or the swarm of bugs that Warren Ellis did in Ultimate Invasion way back in the day. But I
like the trailer. It was good.
Let's just hope that when they show his face, it doesn't have that uncanny weirdness that MODOK did. Like, how do you fuck it up that bad?
No, I don't think they're not going to do that. I think MODOK was supposed to be a funny character that didn't work out for him, but at least I'm hoping that. But they got the look of the thing perfect. I love the huge brow on it.
Yeah. Thing looks fine.
I wish he was bigger. I wish he was just a little bit bigger. I think he's just a little too small.
Jaguar 2, we got practically a spaghetti western panel today. The West, the Doc, the Sully, the Sus, and the Whippersnapper.
Yep.
So, Jim, are you the Sus or is Gabe the Sus? Gabe has to be the Sus.
That's what they need to have a duel, a gunfight for the title.
For the Sus. I got
who's the fastest Sus in the West?
And then it's the others.
Maybe it'd be the sad in the Whippersnapper.
Maybe
the sorrow.
Maybe.
You're Jim's the sorrow later. Yes,
I have been called. I have multiple people tell me that I am the Sorrow Lantern, so I'll go with it. I'm just like the Professor and Marianne at first on Gilligan's Island. And the rest, so I'll just be that. So here I am.
Galb says, and despite what people think, I want the 7th Jurassic Park to win, and the dinosaurs, particularly Spinosaurus, are almost fossil accurate. They do a really good job with the dinosaurs.
They need to get like cybernetic like laser beams in their heads and be able to shoot big guns. Like we need cyber raptors.
We need Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
They need an upgrade. You know what I mean? They got to evolve the iconic brand or else.
They need to go back to making those movies more like thrillers and less action adventure movies. That trailer, Scarlett Johansson shoulder checks a dinosaur.
Yeah.
She's also the mission specialist, which means she's the badass.
I'm waiting for her to do a Hurricanrana on a Velociraptor at some point.
The one badass we had in the first movie died instantly in his first encounter with dinosaurs. It's more interesting having non-badasses.
The Australian guy?
Yeah, it was like clever girl just freaking dies. I love that guy too, but it's more interesting when you have people who aren't badasses.
Have you read the book?
To survive? No, I haven't.
You should read the book because that character is so much more in the book. He lives and he destroys lots of dinosaurs. He's like the ultimate badass in the book. They got it wrong.
I think I read it somewhere that the director of the new one said they're going to try and continue the series by leaning into what worked for Fast and the Furious as a franchise.
Oh,
they're just going.
They're going to drive dinosaurs off of
space.
In space. Yeah.
Bigger and crazier every single time.
It's like Jason X, where they put Jason in
I saw that in theater.
Don't throw shade at that movie. That's surprisingly a really decent horror movie.
Jason in space is
pretty funny. It's very meta.
It's pretty fun.
Oh my goodness, we're about to have unprotected sex, to like draw him in there to try and kill him.
Yeah, the holodeck.
Yeah. That was funny.
The Crystal Lake girls, that's crazy.
Then he picks him up by the bag and starts beating someone to death with a girl inside of a sleeping bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
that was better than fucking some of those Fast and Furious movies that
I thought you were talking about Fast and the Furious still.
No.
Also distinctly possible.
Not that kind of franchise.
Dom just picked up a fucking
I'm like, what happened with
sleeping bag with Letty in it and just started beating someone to death with her?
That was number 3, right?
That was 8.
That wasn't 8.
That was when he started ripping car parts off to fight Jason Statham.
Yes.
So they're going to drive dinosaurs off of
the space station,
dinosaurs with
jetpacks with an EMP.
Dinosaurs in space are probably next. That's probably next.
First dinosaur on the moon.
Look, I'm here for it. Here's the thing with the Jurassic Park movies, the Fast and Furious movies, a number of the horror franchises. They are unapologetically ridiculous. And they lean into how ridiculous they are. They relish it. They are not embarrassed of how stupid they are. And that's what makes them enjoyable.
Gabe, how would you sell Sakamoto, including the fact that Alexa Bliss is in the English dub in episode 4?
Well, the first thing I would do is not bring up Alexa Bliss. Not because of Alexa Bliss, but because nobody knows who that is. And so, yeah, but that's not a selling point.
She got the biggest pop at the Royal Rumble. What are you talking about? Everyone knows.
Not a selling point for Sakamoto. That's not a selling. If we're talking about the manga and the anime, right? I'm assuming that's what they're referring to, right? Sakamoto days. You have to kind of think about what does it connect to that people would understand. So when you're combining people who cook, who are also assassins, you have to think about the weird, sort of wholesome, strange dichotomy of what that represents. So you have to think about what other properties were successful that people like that kind of fit in that realm. For me, it would be something like anything from Luc Besson, like La Femme Nikita, or what's the one with
The Fifth Element?
No, The Professional. The Professional with a very young Natalie Portman. It's those kinds of stories where it's like family and heart and togetherness and people like bonding with each other. Oh, and they also happen to be assassins who kill people. It's that you got to look for those kind of bridges where people can make the connection. Alexa Bliss is great if you have people who are into wrestling, but if you try to sell Sakamoto, it's not the selling point that you're going to make it out to be.
That's why
the characters are great too. But
yeah, the characters are really awesome.
That's why no one cares that Seth Rollins got cut from
Captain America.
Captain America.
Yeah.
Callum says, I didn't like Ben Grimm's voice. I was hoping for a Doc voice, but deeper and more New York. But how many reshoots will it get? And when that's bait and switch and Girl Boss? I know it's certainly, from the point of view of the trailer, it's a Sue Storm movie. But they should get fucking Clint Eastwood to do the voice for Ben Grimm. That would be perfect.
That would be perfect. That would be
also,
great.
Silver Surfer's a woman. Remember that. So
or gender
swap.
Or he can the actor that's playing Ben could just start smoking a pack a day for like the next 20 years.
You could get on some testosterone.
Yeah.
Deeper voice. His voice is off.
I didn't mind it.
I didn't like Michael Chiklis's voice for Ben Grimm, by the way. Am I the only one?
It felt like he was forcing it.
Yeah.
It was okay, but it felt like he was like trying to get gravelly, and it sounded like somebody who was trying to get gravelly rather than that's the way his natural voice sounds.
Yeah, that's why you got to get Clint Eastwood to dub that sumbitch.
Like who did Pumbaa in the Lion King? That's kind of like
The Rock.
what I'm thinking.
You want The Rock, huh?
No,
No,
and I
he
mean,
did Pumbaa.
No,
there's
I-
James,
Hey, is James Earl still alive?
man, he
No,
was a young
did.
warthog.
I can picture the
Dion
actor.
says DC nearly died during 2009, 2011 when Batman titles only sold 55,000 units per month. We're in the top 15 hashtag Doc 2028. That is true. They were definitely in the tank before Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo went on to the mainline Batman book and really reinvigorated the series. Obviously, Court of Owls had a lot to do with that.
Green Lantern was huge then, though.
Hold on,
They
I'm
had all the
confused. Are
events
we
and things,
are we
carried
draft?
it.
Are we drafting me for president?
Yes.
Is that?
I don't know, dude. I wouldn't.
I think
vote
that's
for
a terrible idea.
you. Yeah. But
You
I
got
think
my
you're
vote.
right, Jim. It definitely wasn't the number one character. And Jeff Johns was on Green Lantern at the time, I believe.
And they had all the events and things. That's why when the new 52 came, they ended up not changing the continuity to the Green Lantern stuff. It remained because of the big Green Lantern stuff that was going on. So there you go.
But yeah, DC's almost died a few times.
Sonny, Sully, the guy you're thinking of is Ernie Sabella. Ernie Sabella.
Who wouldn't have thought of Ernie Sabella?
I mean, right off the tip of my tongue.
rolls off the
Yeah.
tongue. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I take Ernie Hudson.
If that guy was a
That's it.
comic, Gabe would review it this week over everything else.
Fantastic.
Over Batman.
Everybody
Over
gets a
Batman,
turn.
everything.
Everybody gets.
That's
a
what
turn.
we hear, Gabe. But you leave that personal, please.
Caleb says, I guess I have to let go of my writing on Angela Odin's daughter reboot at Marvel, but I hope Rob Liefeld talks more about how thin-skinned Feige is.
Ooh.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
Mhm.
Rob's skin is not exactly thick either. I love the guy, but he's not a thick-skinned guy himself.
I was, remember last year
You don't think he deserved a handshake and an
Oh
acknowledgement?
no! I am not disagreeing with a single point he made.
Mhm.
He absolutely deserved to be treated like a million times better than they did.
And Rob's the guy that would never put up with that.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Or
He
hasn't,
didn't.
I guess.
And now part of that is because he is a little thin-skinned. But I mean, it's just kind of a character flaw. That being said, he absolutely deserves much better treatment than he got. Every single opportunity that Marvel has had to fuck that guy for the last 30 years, they've taken it. From
Yeah, they changed names of books to try and get out of having to pay him his fucking royalties.
Yeah, they fired him off the Heroes Reborn reboot, even though he was getting his stuff in on time, getting all the work done, and it was actually outselling the Wildstorm stuff. For the canceling his books so that they didn't have to pay him, to bring him back, and then remember whenever he turned in the fucking Deadpool Batter Blood to
5
when
years.
Heather Ontos was still at Marvel,
Yeah.
and they just sat on it for like 5 years. So yeah, I'd be fucking pissed if I was him too.
Yeah, all I had to do was shake his hand, maybe a little bit of acknowledgement, maybe answer his fucking phone call.
Yeah,
but
remember-
Rob is thin-skinned, but they deserve to be called out.
Hollywood's more important. They're better.
Well, they said Fabian Nicieza was at the after party, but he was roped off from being near the stars.
Jesus, where's Josh? Because I really need Josh here today to shit on how bad and how fucking petty and childish the entire Hollywood machine is. These people are toddlers.
He says, Sully, what comic book writer would you serve Hannibal Lecter?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean,
Or is that Hannibal Lecture?
You know, I get it. I'm picking up what he's putting down
long-winded.
there. He's dude, we're going for like tender veal, like Tom King, you know what I mean? Or are we going for like a satisfying overall, bounty of food, such as Dan Slott? You know what I mean? Well,
Over marbled.
I know, huh? Jeez, you'd have to
That's
praise
just
Dan Slott though. A lot of connective tissue and fat.
Marbling.
And
Dylan's going, what the? Is he thinking about this? What the fuck?
Sully, are you saying that
Is he
Dan
pro
Slott
and
is the
con
Wagyu of comic
fucking
writers?
Cannibalism?
He's a little old though.
Dan Slott is the Wagyu of comic book writers. Is that what you're saying?
I
We
guess.
suspended him with fucking ropes and
No.
How about CB Spolsky? There's
No,
tons,
Slaughter's
and you
not
get a little
Wagyu.
Asian flair. You
Wagyu is
get a little
quality. I mean, we're talking
Got to
about.
put him in a small pen and just feed him. Like,
Yeah,
can't move.
that's Tom King.
Like
He's veal. Yeah, Tom King is the veal here.
His mom
Cal
treated him
says-
like that. So.
What's sad is Ben's never going to fight Hulk in live action. I don't believe that's the case, Doc. We still
Oh,
got
no.
2 Avengers movies,
And we'll see it.
and eventually the Hulk and Thing are definitely going to fight.
They're absolutely going to have a Hulk
That's
thing.
That's
Now
a character moment.
there will not be a Hulk movie. It won't even have Hulk's. Even if they could do an entire Hulk versus Thing movie, and it won't have Hulk's name in the title. Guarantee it, because
Marvel
they're
doing
not. Yeah, they'll they'll do like a. There was a great book from many years ago, Hulk Thing Hard Knocks. If you haven't read it, go check it out. Jay Lee art for the entire 4 issues. Fucking amazing. But you are absolutely going to have it. It might not be until after they've recast the Hulk, because they're eventually going to get rid of Ruffalo. You know that. And they'll recast
Ed
them.
Norton back.
Yeah, because that's totally going to happen. He's definitely coming back at some point.
Money talks.
That would be cool.
I mean,
Ed Norton has never worked
the
with the
previous
same-
problem. But the previous problem was that Universal retained the rights to the Hulk,
The
that
distribution.
but they don't have the rights, but they still have the distribution, but they don't have the rights anymore. So they
Yeah.
could do it. They would just have to share with Universal, pretty much like a Sony
that's-
deal. with
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Well, that's been the thing. Well, that's why they were able to put Hulk in Avengers. They only have the distribution and rights only count for movies that are Hulk movies. You can put the Hulk in fucking anything and don't have to pay Universal a dime. But the minute you put Hulk's name in the title, you have to pay distribution to Universal. It's that simple.
Next up, Cal says they said the T-Rex river chase is in it. As for that mutant dinosaur, it's alleged to be the first clone prototype with wrong DNA. So, also in the book, Dylan, you might not know this. I'm going to explain it to you. Not only do you have a really badass version of that Australian guy, but there's this awesome river chase scene with the T-Rex. That's probably the best scene in the entire book that they cut out of the movie when they did the Spielberg adaptation. So I've also heard this rumor that scene particularly will be in this one.
They showed part of it in the trailer, and yeah, I lived it, dude. I did the Universal ride. Yeah.
How
where
is
you're
that?
on the
'Cause
river?
We've
It's really
watched
good.
it with my 3-year-old who loves dinosaurs, and he gets very excited.
I liked it a lot, but also that was like 15 years ago when I wrote it, so I don't know if they've changed it or whatnot. But
It's got an Indominus now and all that stuff.
okay, yeah, because like when you go over the waterfall at the end, they like hold you for a second, then you go, and the T-Rex, like they flash lights so you see the T-Rex and like comes to chomp you as you're going down. It was sick. I loved it. I loved it as a kid. It was so cool.
Universal's just better. Universal Studios is better than Disney now, isn't it?
Never been to Disney, so I don't know.
They got all the cool stuff. They got the Wizarding World. They got the dinosaurs. They probably got some Fast and Furious stuff. But I don't know. You're going to see this Jurassic World Rebirth?
I'll probably end up seeing it. I wasn't too hyped by the trailer. I know visually it'll look cool though, because the director, everything he does, while not the best movies, they always look good. So it'll look cool at least.
You got an AMC card. Did you go to a movie this week?
I'm going to see tonight. I'm going to see Hard Eyes.
What the hell is Hard Eyes? It sounds like a porn.
It does.
It's a like it's sort of
Hard.
like Scream. It's like a horror comedy sort of deal. It's like there's this guy that has hard eyes on and he kills couples because Valentine's Day is next week. So yeah,
Mm.
it's supposed to be pretty good.
Eyes.
I was gonna say I thought that was about Cena Grace, and then I'm like, oh no, that's Short Eyes. Sorry.
Oh no.
Might have been about Teenie Howard, Doc.
That's just hard on the eyes.
Oh, jeez, you guys are terrible people.
Incorrigible.
Tarot cards.
So we did have some big things going down, as Gabe mentioned earlier. We do have Diamond Distributors shutting down. Some people are finding spots over on Lunar. Boom has moved over to Penguin Random House. I believe Massive has opened up to where they will sub-distribute through Lunar for you if you're not able to strike your own kind of deal. We've got layoffs at Dark Horse. We got layoffs at IDW. We got financial reports from IDW that basically Penguin Random House are going to take the monies that Diamond didn't pay them for IDW products, and they're going to take it out of IDW. And then we also had the big freak out this week. Did you see this one? The freak out about the tariffs?
Yeah.
They're like, oh my goodness, every book will be at least $1 more. Did you see what Matt Moylan did to that to Rich Johnson, Doc?
I missed that. I know that he said something. But I don't recall exactly what it was. Do you have it?
No, basically what he was explaining is like, yeah, the cover price is $4.99. That's not how much it costs to produce it.
Yeah.
The extra tariff would be on the production cost as you bring it across the border. It costs like 30 cents or maybe 40 cents to do a comic book. That would be an addition of a dime.
Yeah.
And Rich Johnson just didn't believe it. Like, nope, all comic books are going to be $7 now.
Yeah, they think that it's an MSRP. It's a tariff on the wholesale price of the importer. So if you're spending, I don't know, $20,000 to bring product A across that you are then going to sell for $150,000, you're only paying the tariff on the 20. That's how much you paid for it.
Yeah, you don't do the tariff on the cover price.
No, you don't do it on the MSRP. You do it on your cost.
Mm-hmm. Your invoice.
People are fucking retarded.
Yes, but that was the big freak out for like, I don't know,
fairness,
12 hours.
In fairness, Rich is British, and they do VAT taxes over there.
Yes, they do,
and that is on the new value. So that I think Rich is just, well, I mean, look, we know Rich is dumb. He's not a smart person. He probably thinks that an American tariff is similar to a VAT.
He just wanted to freak out about Trump and say something bad about it, how he was going to kill the industry. And obviously that's not going to happen. As I said in the video when I talked about it, I was like, this will be measured in days maybe. And it didn't even make it to that. It was hours.
It was hours. Yeah. Justin, little Castro, he almost lasted a whole day. Almost. He was like 22 hours about that before he caved like a bitch.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of weird negotiations, and certainly Trump was using that as a negotiating tool. But it was wild. Valiant says you'll never see a $4.99 comic book again. We had other publishers out there kind of freaking out that the price is going to skyrocket. There was one that was like, we're not really sure what's going to happen here, so we're probably going to have to look at things. But while all that made up stuff was happening, Doc, there's real shit going on. People are losing their jobs. There are more layoffs, and it feels like the American comic book industry, is it breaking apart? Do you think it's healing itself? What is going on here?
I think you have to look at it as it's evolving. And look, you can't,
good way to put it.
You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. I mean, I hate to sound fucking cliche, but that's really what it comes down to. They're fundamentally, you had a system for 25 years of exclusive monopoly.
Boutique stores, a destination location.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Peter Samedi said something really interesting on his show a few weeks ago. It's like if you were a peanut butter fan and you had to go to the peanut butter store just to get a peanut butter. And I was like, wow, what a great metaphor. You really nailed it. Everything about that. I mean,
there's peanut butter stores.
No, that's the thing.
Out.
There isn't, because it would be stupid.
Yeah.
So no, he nails it right there. This is the argument I've been making for 6 years on this show, 7 years now, that you need to have these things in normie spaces if you want normies to find them. It's also the reason why the internet, as much as I love it, isn't really the place to do it, because the problem with the internet, as opposed to, I don't know, real life, is that you can't, I mean, yes, you can, but it's more incidental than anything else. You don't stumble upon things that you didn't know existed or care to know existed that are incredibly far off from what you're actually looking for. When you're walking into the gas station and you're like, at the convenience store there, and you walk in, you're like, oh, you know what? While I'm here, I'm going to get a soda. And you have to walk past a spinner rack. Is there anything directly connecting getting gas, buying a soda, and comics? No.
And you say that it's just the same as like a YouTube algorithm. You don't normally search out everything you end up watching. You end up looking for something, and then that kind of leads you to something popping up that you might kind of like, that goes down. And so you end up, and sometimes, I mean, I'll tell you, like the big thing that I do, the dirty song deal, nobody's searching those. It's that they pop up in some other video and oh, that looks neat, and they grab that, and I do way better on that than comics. So that kind of combines in. So.
Absolutely. And while you can eventually, like, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon your way over, you have to dedicate time to allow yourself to go down a rabbit hole to get from where do I buy a soda to getting a comic book.
The other thing, and just a second, the other thing is when you go to that and they have to be quality too, or you're gonna turn everybody off to that, going to the next thing, the next time you're gonna be like, no. So there's the the be all end all is that has to be strong and good comics, and they're not really great right now either. So, you have to combine those two, but it is true. Like a lot of people right now, and the way that my kids do things, they're not, I hate to say it, people aren't really like fans of a lot of things. They're just fans of whatever pops up, and they suddenly become this and that. And it does get scattered and a very quick to jump from one thing to the other, but you have to have it in front of their faces all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't have that with comics.
No, you don't. And you also don't have the ability to do that with the internet. You do have it by blanketing the fucking planet in normie stores. Because you know what? People are still going to be walking into a grocery store tomorrow. They're still going to be going into the convenience store to get a soda. They're still going to be walking into a Walmart to buy.
And these are periodical publications. I mean, I make it a point every time I'm in the grocery store to seek out the magazine rack. I know exactly where it is. It's at the deli where people wait. And there are periodical publications there. There are just
actually, that's brilliant.
Exactly. Cosmopolitan's there. I mean, Women's World, People Magazine. You know what I mean? And they still have a cover price somewhere between $4.99 and like $7.99 too. And these are periodical publications. This is exactly what floppies are. Yeah. So there's your marketplace. I mean, where are people going to congregate and be at the most in a queue? At the deli. That's an amazing idea.
That actually really is. Our grocery stores here, the magazine aisle is like opposite the candy aisle for some reason. Like it's magazines on one side, candy. I mean, I can understand that. Again, that's where the kids would end up. So if the kids turn around and look the other direction, see magazines, shit like that.
That's one of the biggest problems when you ended up having those Walmart comics. It's a great idea, but they never put them anywhere. I mean, I ended up going and trying to get those. And you had to search them. They did. They ended up at one point. They were with like the cards and things like that, like the Pokemon cards and but then the next time I went, they were in the shelf next to that, underneath on the floor. They were actually on the floor under the shelf. Because they didn't care. They just threw them wherever. So that kind of ends up where it like left a sour taste everywhere. Instead of putting them back, with the books and things like the Dogman stuff and things, like you have to do it smart. You can't just like throw it there. And like you said, Doc, that's just what reminded me of the idea of having it in the candy aisle. Yeah, like, that's perfect. Yeah.
So, look, I mean, can it survive? Yes, it can, but it has to evolve. And a lot of the things in my opinion, the evolution, you need to, not only do you have to move forward, in some cases, you do need to move backwards. They got away from practices that were effective. And now it's like, I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know if it's pride. I don't know what it is. Like they won't go back.
It makes it seem like they're afraid to feel like they're like not up with the times, or like, you know what I mean? Because the idea at one point, that's how they all sold, and they sold a lot more. So going back to that doesn't mean, I mean, why does it mean for them right away that it wouldn't work? Because it did work. I know there's more options. There's the internet and all these things, but it's still like somebody in the comments said, after watching a movie, one person might go to the comic store, but thousands upon millions are going to the supermarkets or, you know, the convenience store or, you know, stuff like that. So it is. I mean, I go to Wawa, you know, local deal and whatnot, and not so local anymore. But if I went in there and there was just a stand up there, it would catch your eye. I'm telling you, you would notice it at least. And then that many people noticing might check it out. And then you get kids, oh, look at that. And do it smart. Put some like Spider-Man, or, you know, if you're going to go put some characters that kids would like at first. And then you might end up with a whole, you know, aisle of it.
We can look at it kind of like candy. I mean, I know Peter Samedi had that argument of, you know, you wouldn't make people go to the peanut butter store to get peanut butter, but there are dedicated candy stores. However, in order for one to get people to go into a dedicated candy store, they must also initially like candy. And how do they decide they like candy? Because it is in the grocery store. It is in the convenience store. It is impulse buy when you're waiting for other shit that you're actually intending on do it. It has to be nobody intentionally becomes a comic book fan. You know, you have to be engaged in some intentional activity that you get incidentally exposed to it. You know,
but why are we talking about the spinner racks? I understand the nostalgia for it.
No.
But comics are too expensive to put on a spinner rack nowadays, and that's the reason Marvel and DC went away from that model and they went strictly to the direct market because they could charge more.
Well, first of all, no, they that was not the reason. They did it out of greed, not because it was too expensive. They just decided.
I didn't say it was too expensive. They put it in the direct market and they concentrated their efforts more because they could charge more in the direct market.
Exactly, and we have to accept that they made a strategic error. You're not getting out of this without unfucking a previously fucked decision. That's my point.
Man, I'm not saying put like this week's Harley Quinn up on the deal. You can get greatest hits, you know, things that you price at $2.99 or what. You could end up doing that at first to try to get people as well. Just reprint some, you know, big kid-friendly stuff or whatever.
If I am Marvel and DC, I am not reprinting old stuff because you're not going to generate new readers that are gonna come back month to month.
And I want to point out, Super Mastermind in the comments was saying that teens can't afford going to a movies, much less buy popcorn. I think that's completely ridiculous. My kids end up whatever money they don't save, so and they have jobs that aren't great, and my kids get DoorDash 3 times a day, pay exorbitant amount for that, go to the movies constantly, and you know, maybe I give them too much money because they're brats, but and even then they're not asking me that much. They're more asking me money for pot.
But you take if you are the big publishers, you take your 10 best marquee titles. Every publisher has at least 10 their top 10 titles, and you price them. You are willing to take a hit and hope that you can make up the difference in volume moved, because that's
you still have to pay Wawa an exorbitant amount of money just to get the spinner rack in there now.
Not really. It's not
you
that
really
expensive.
do. I mean, all that stuff costs money to actually get there and get space. Now, it's not for refrigerator space, which costs a lot more money. But they don't just give you area in there. You got to pay for it.
Yes, you're paying for it, and then they're paying you to buy the product. So it balances itself out, and you end up with new.
Yeah, but they're never going to do this. I think a much better idea.
I understand,
and I think Dylan will probably know where I'm coming from. Maybe Dylan doesn't read any digital comic books, but they really should come up with a viable digital strategy.
It doesn't exist.
Digital comic books are the way to make comic books actually affordable. It's an entryway to make it very, very cheap yet they refuse to drop the prices on any of this stuff, and they charge just as much for a digital comic book as they do for a physical comic book. And it's really crazy. But there are a lot of people, especially in the younger demographic, Dylan, that are going more digital.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because the experience isn't as good on digital, but you're paying the same price, and it doesn't cost them near as much to get that out there. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That would be a great way to get people to actually read, and a lot less people would pirate that way too, because the dollar's so much more convenient than having to go to like some pirate site with a bunch of pop-ups. Like, oh, I'll pay
or
a dollar.
Subscription fee of $5 a month.
Exactly.
I have. And look, this is, and I don't entirely disagree, but I have one question that no one has successfully answered yet. When it comes, yes, a digital strategy is great. Having that a decent price point, that's wonderful. How the fuck do you get people that are not searching the internet for comics to buy comics?
How did they do it in Japan? Because Japan has a much bigger comic book market than America does.
Very simple. And they have it in normie spaces,
but
in
also
the real world.
But in Japan, the vast majority of their sales now come from digital rather than physical media.
Yeah, because they have a cultural acceptance of it.
No, because they have a digital strategy.
That's one of the big things too, though, that it is a cultural acceptance of manga and anime, and it's nothing that seems kiddie.
My idiots watch all their movies on their phones. The younger generation is very, very accepting of enjoying entertainment on their phone.
Agreed. 80% of your population already reads was already reading sequential storytelling.
They have more time to read.
2% in America do.
I mean, they commute differently. They have less car owners, so you have less drivers. So you have passengers on a train or some kind of subway.
It's you're waiting and you're being exposed to it while you're in the process of doing something unrelated, and it is.
Well, it's called marketing, the same way that they tell you about the comic book shop. There's a new writer on Batman.
I understand. Look, and again, I don't disagree. The whole logic here, you have to start where Japan is able to do and have this amazingly successful digital strategy currently because 60 years ago they had it and permeated the culture to the point where that was the acceptable normal form of storytelling that everyone bought in the store. We have to start where they did. You can't. This is like DC Comics trying to jump to Justice League and not doing any of the groundwork. American comics trying to do Japan's digital strategy is like DC trying to jump straight to the Justice League because they saw it work for Marvel with the Avengers. You didn't do any of the groundwork, and surprise, it doesn't actually...
You get to your final goal.
Yes. Your strategy is based on the vast majority of your entire population, not even just a small niche, your population reading a medium that the American public does not accept. It's that simple. You have to get the American public to accept that as a viable, normal, everyday reading medium in order for your digital strategy work.
Yeah, but you actually have to have a strategy of getting them in people's hands. The spinner
rack
and that was work
and putting it in normie spaces is that
they got to find a new place.
Okay, then digital doesn't work until you build it in normie spaces. I don't give a fuck what format it is. It could be spinner rack, it could be a shelf, it could be dropping them from a goddamn plane onto people's heads for all I care. They
have to do something. They can't just do what they're doing now. They're just going to kind of go away.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If they get this, it's the shit that's coming out now. If they get this stuff in people's hands right now, nobody's going to buy it.
Nobody's going to buy it anyway.
That's where it has to stop right there. It has to start.
Read Shazam 20. You're like, I don't like comic books. This is terrible.
Yeah. It ends up where, you don't want somebody's first comic to be this week's Shazam.
You don't.
Or they're just going to end up thinking everything's like that. You have to, that's why if you did have something, even digitally, if you had something, you have to start with some tried and true classics. You can't just willy-nilly throw, as Doc would say, Teenie Howard's latest epic or, things like that, because that's just going to turn people off. Yeah. It's just, you have to start with that. I mean, we're talking about how to distribute it. You can't distribute shit and think everybody's going to eat a shit sandwich. You got to start making something good. You got to get the Wagyu Dan Slott burger going, and then we're good, right? But
Well, you are 100% correct on that, and I think all this comes back to the fact that it requires something that the publishers are unwilling to do, which is an acceptance of the fact that they made a bunch of mistakes in the first place. They made a mistake on the creators. They made a mistake on the direction of content. They made a mistake in abandoning normie spaces. They have to go backwards on those three big things and that they sought exclusively profit over long-term viability. They convinced themselves that the direct market was self-sustaining. It is not. It is only sustaining once it has a feeder system, and that is the normie space distribution model. Fix those three things, and then we can talk about a good digital strategy. We can talk about trying to replicate what the Japanese did. We could try a lot of other new things, but it would require them admitting that those three things, direction, creative, well, actually four: direction, creative, price, and exposure. When they abandoned and shrunk that all four of those things was a mistake, and they need to reverse course on. And right now, their pride won't allow them.
Well, also just the economics of it. I don't think that they can charge that much less unless they're willing to lose money.
Well,
But certainly Warner Brothers isn't going to be like, yeah, just lose money, DC. Disney's not going to be like, yes, lose money for us, Marvel Comics. They have to find a way to get the price down.
But if you would look at it, as somebody in the corporate world, sometimes you have to look at strategic, spending essentially in order to, and you're looking at your ROI. Okay, I'm making this kind of investment, and that investment is selling at a loss.
But why would Disney want to invest in comic books when they can invest in a new ride at Disney World that's going to make them more money?
You're not wrong. This is the thing that
when you're already that they put themselves in.
Yes, when you're already the redheaded stepchild of your corporate conglomerate, that the only thing they care about you being is their IP farm. I don't think they understand. But at the same time, you look at big corporations, and if they have a small R&D department, and you have to sell it as, hey, look, you want us to be an IP farm, but we need this much influx in capital expenditure in order to operate at a loss to then build your new IP. Because what they need is because essentially it's a test market. That's what the comics have been. For Disney, for Warner Brothers, they are a test market for essentially future film adaptations. We can absolutely show without a shadow of a doubt that when you have a comic that's adapted even loosely, where the general plot, the general character dynamics, the general everything is lifted directly from a comic book, even if it's not a shot for shot adaptation, but if it's very strongly influenced by a specific story arc in a comic book, it is more successful than those where they come in and try to come up with their own original idea that might take a little bit of here and there and Frankenstein it together. We can look at all of Phase 4 as that, because that's all that Phase 4 has been, is them saying, okay, we're going to take the character from the comic, but we're going to do a completely original story. Every single one of them has faltered so far, with the exception of Spider-Man and Deadpool and Wolverine. And even those are still loosely adapted from other stories. The Eternals, Shang-Chi, the Marvels, all that shit does not have a successful comic that it is based off of. Marvel can absolutely, and DC with the same argument, could say that when you adapt the comics that have been loved by comic readers you end up with billion-dollar movies. When you come up with something completely original, you end up with a flop that ends up maybe barely breaking even, if not losing money. So what we need to do is we need that test audience to make these comics so that they're still going, so that we can find out what the comic reader, what stories the comic reader loves. Not the ones we tell them to love, what the ones they actually love. The only way to do that is by increasing the size of the audience right now, because it's too small to get a good data set. And to do that, we need to sell these books for the next 4 years at a loss in the general public. We're going to sell them in normie spaces again. We're going to rebuild the comic audience so that then, it's 4 steps from getting good comics to you making billion-dollar movies, but they are 4 important steps. That's the argument you make. And a good CEO listens to that argument. They might not agree with it, but they at least hear it.
There we go.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
A doc
You
rant.
went on a mega rant. That was a whole video.
Awesome.
Sorry. I'm going to shut the fuck up now.
That was all
Dude,
good.
great. Righteous.
So you're the youngest guy on the whole panel here, Dylan. You're a younger reader. You picked up comic books, going to the library with the family, and you fell in love with Superman, all that stuff. I'm sure that you have friends around the same age, and maybe you've mentioned that you like comic books.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that your friends aren't interested? Do they tell you why they don't like it, or what the problem is?
I've had friends at times that were interested and read some comics and then just fell off. I have no one that I know in the real world that actually consistently reads comics. I've had my brother was into Green Lantern for a while and read all the Jeff Johns stuff, and then fell off after Jeff Johns left in the New 52, and then never came back to comics. And I've had other friends that I would take them with me to the comic shop. We go browse through back issues, and then they just fell out, and I just couldn't maintain people. None of my friends could consistently keep going or cared enough to really get into it and become lifelong fans.
Yeah, you think it's just the money? Is it the quality? Is you do have to go back every Wednesday and build up that addiction?
I think so. I think also I know something that a lot of people don't like is the waiting a month for a new issue. I know a lot of people prefer reading trades and prefer getting a whole arc at once compared to, I read this one issue, 30 days later I read the next. What happened last issue? I don't even remember. It's been so long. I know that's been a complaint I've had from people that I've introduced to comics when they try to get into new comics. It's I don't even remember what happened, especially when you have delays. Something that's a personal pet peeve of mine is fill-in artists. Especially, we just had the new issue of JSA. It's man, we had 3 issues of that artist that I really like. I can't remember his name. It's
Diego Olatugi.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his last name, but he's really good. It's man, we had 3 issues of him, and now we've got a fill-in artist. Same with Absolute Batman. We got 3 issues, and then we get a fill-in artist. It's that really sucks. Especially if you pick up the trade, you don't even get consistent art. You get, oh, this is really good, and then you get, oh, the quality really dipped here. Okay, we're back. And same thing with Ultimate Spider-Man. It's happening constantly. I think that
Incredible
definitely drives people away. Yeah, I think that drives people away a lot, because I feel you can pick up pre 2014, you can pick up pretty much any trade and it'll be oh, it's the same artist throughout this entire arc. And now it's okay, you have the same artist for the first couple issues, and then it switches, and then you go back, and it's really annoying. I think that's
also
really
back
annoying.
in the day, if you read X-Men, which clears Claremont, there's plenty of fill-in artists, but there's a Marvel house style, and the change in style in visual storytelling isn't so dramatic that it really does throw you out, going from Nick Klein to whatever that Danny Earls.
Yeah, you don't get that whiplash. It's rough.
Yeah.
You don't get, man, especially Ultimate Spider-Man. You go from Marco Cicchetto to the film arts. This is not even close. This is
Dave Messina, yeah.
rough. Yeah.
It's a lot different. Holy crap, you just bailed on us there. I thought you were going to be providing all these insights, Gabe, and you let Doc just fucking filibuster.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a little family emergency that I had to take care of real quick, but we're all settled now.
Everything's
good.
okay.
No, nothing threatening or putting anybody's
nothing Jim Werner level family threat to your life.
No, it's more like a technical problem that had to be resolved, but all taken care of.
Like someone just said in the chat, you got to wait years in between crowdfunded comics. So it's funny when crowdfunded books like, we're going to save comics. Pay $50 for my 30 pages every 5 years. I'm saving comics by doing this. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's only a few people that have really been able to keep a pace. Like Coffin Comics normally has a lot of projects going out there. Certainly the guys over at Conic, specifically Tim and Mark. But it does get frustrating. You're like, oh, another 1.5 year wait minimum. And overseas shipping, so it ends up being like $70. Pretty wild.
And a lot of people are talking about manga in the chat, and LK just brought it up too. When you do have something, and Sakamoto Days was mentioned earlier, and they do end up having, adaptations in anime that's spot on. I mean, they end up being overly, faithful to the deal, and we don't have that here. So when a lot of kids will end up loving, even, my kids have watched more anime. They won't read manga. They just won't, but they'll watch some of the anime. But the idea of having that back and forth, and there's so many things that the US and the big two, like, it just got wrong. There's so many things that have to change.
They did a Court of Owls movie and made it about Damien.
Exactly.
How do you do that?
And so if somebody did go to read the story, it's the weird play of them actually being upset that the actual real good story wasn't what they just watched. That was crap.
Or they went to go the sequel.
Yeah.
Why is this about Batman? Where's Damien in this fucking story?
And that's the worst, is you'd end up having them actually think that the comics got it wrong because they watched the movie first, and that's not what you want. And that's a huge thing. And anime, again, is like, it's right on. And that's just the Sakamoto Days. It's right on. When you read the manga now, most people then wait for it. And I can't wait till the anime comes out because they want to see what they just read on the screen. And when it doesn't go faithful, then people just reject it because that's what they expect. But they also expect quality. And that's another thing when Doc was talking about in Japan, it's not just the idea, and it is culturally accepted, and the people like your grandfather will be reading stuff, so you end up doing, but they also expect quality. And one of the things that I was talking in the chat is that if something is bad, something comes on Shonen Jump and it's bad, it will not last more than 3 months. If people don't like it, if people don't buy it, it's gone. It gets cut. They don't have an idea of, well, this has this message, or we need this or that person. It gets cut, and you have thousands of people lined up to get the next thing in. And when that happens, these people are also so thankful that they're able to get the shot. That's the other thing, the social media and everything with this, that American comics are in big trouble. And a lot of it is what's on the pages, but there's so much else that is just nonsense of creators being jerks or this and that.
Well,
it's all rolled up into one.
Jim, also with manga, it's consistent. It's always the same writer and essentially the same.
It's always the same. You can always start at number one. Yeah.
About Batman, a character created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. They've been dead for quite some time. And in the meantime, since they walked away, 70 years ago, probably longer than that, we've gotten Grant Morrison's perspective on Batman. We've got Scott Snyder's perspective on Batman, and they don't all coalesce together. It does kind of make the characters not really solidified.
When a writer, and I don't really like Chip Zdarsky's Batman, and so when you get a writer that's off, or years of it being off, then people just know that, and they're not going to go back. And some people like to read it as it's coming out, and if it sucks, you bail. Also, manga comes out each week, and it just is always there. You always know it's there, and also it's very quick. So if you miss 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you can catch up quickly. If you miss going to the comic store and you miss 5 issues of something, so you just kind of bail. Like even Dylan said, his friend was reading, Jeff Johns leaves, he's done, and you just don't come back, and you don't have that, with manga, like you said.
And I'm not advocating that we should just go and mirror what the Japanese manga market does, because it's a similar product, and but there are different cultures and everything there. I just think that we could learn so much and incorporate good ideas that would work in America. Because I do think the biggest inhibitor with comic books is the price, and digital, I do think ultimately probably is the solution.
Well, and you end up where if you're going to look at manga, you don't have to be manga. That's the problem. That's what happens at points with Western companies and, you know, the whole entertainment deal, they don't look at it as like, okay, what worked and how can we incorporate it into our system? It's, we want to be manga, so let's be and that doesn't
change
work
our
either.
product.
Yeah, they just end up changing things. That doesn't work. Just look at what does work. And people are talking in the chat as well. Me and Wes, we both, the Shonen Jump app should be the, you know, that should be the poster child of how to do something with, and don't just make, you know, a mimic of it. Don't clone that. But day and date, you have free chapters. Each new thing is free, because what happens, and I saw Dan Didio way back, where he didn't want any digital stuff because he's afraid that obviously then people won't buy the collected stuff. But anybody,
I think it's the exact opposite.
And anybody who's a manga fan here, they will. I see people who are like, I read everything on Shonen Jump. I do this, and then they show their bookshelf that is just tons of trades. It's tons.
I think
of
what
volumes.
DC and Marvel are doing now would work a billion times better with a functioning digital strategy or some other strategy to get people in. Because then you could sell all the fucking variant covers and all that stuff, and there would be a robust collector's market rather than whittling itself down and running people off.
I mean, even with that, just with manga, it shows that people will read stuff for free and then buy the collected. That you can end up selling the trades while they're also reading. And then there's going to be people who are just going to always buy physical. They're going to be them. But you end up where I have a buddy that I do manga podcasts with. This guy orders everything, but yet he's already read it, but he wants to have it on the shelf. He orders even the Japanese versions. He doesn't speak Japanese. He's crazy. That's like all that, because he just likes collecting the stuff too. And you get both. And you could figure out what you like and what you don't, because they're all there. And like you said, you have the first two, usually first like 3, and then last 2 chapters free. And then in the meantime, that Shonen Jump app's like $2.99 a month. It's the best buy in any sort of comic. It is. I ended up at a point where we stopped doing a lot of the manga stuff. I didn't even think of deleting the app or unsubscribing because it's so cheap. And I know that I'll just go back to it. Now I'll end up checking out something eventually. So I just let it roll. You know, I just recently started reading some more again. I had a high, but I never unsubscribe because it is so cheap. It's just, there's a way to do this. Don't just mimic it, but get what works and go with it. And in a Western model type thing, but I don't know. They painted themselves in a corner a lot, and the books stink. I mean, as a general, even if you're there, and I'd love everything to be great, but as a whole, they kind of are really down right now. You have to pick and choose, and it sucks.
All right, so Gabe, you said you had a lot of thoughts and stuff on Diamond shutting down, lots of publishers moving to new distributors, and all that stuff. Anything that you wanted to bounce in here before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, just from the perspective of, I tend to look at these things more from the business point of view, more from the perspective of, you know, what do the readers want? What's going to be good for the individual publishers? Just more like prognostication for what's going to happen. There's a 10% chance that companies that go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy come out of it. So Diamond has a 10% chance of making out of their current situation. The probability of them doing that right now, given their debt load and the type of thin margin business they're in, is very low. So there's a high probability that Diamond Distribution, which is the arm that distributes comics, remember Diamond is a bunch of different things put together. The piece that distributes the comics, very unlikely they're gonna survive the Chapter 11 piece. We'll know that by April 1st. Technically speaking, they need to have a commit date by March 25th, but April 1st is the deadline. They're probably not going to come out of it. So let's assume that they don't come out of it. What happens? Diamond Distribution, which is the comics distribution piece of Diamond, is going to just disappear. Done. You're gone. You're out. So what happens? There are really 3 or 4 areas of change where that's going to come into play. The larger publishers are probably going to be fine. You've already seen it. Some of them are jumping to Lunar. Some of them are jumping to PRH. Lesser than that, you already see things like Vault. I've already seen the announcement from Valiant, which is Alien Comics, and Coffin Comics and a few others. They're going direct to consumer. That's viable for them if they have a consistent, viable product, but they have to assume all the labor of setting up the supply chain, doing all the things and making sure it's printed, making sure it's shipped. You have to have some cash behind you to make that happen. Very few publishers are going to be able to go that route. Then you're going to have a third option. The third option are people who are going to distribute on their own, but they're going to use third parties to help them do it. Effectively, they're going to create like a supply chain of different vendors to get that distribution to go. That's going to be less of a infrastructure support problem, but it's definitely going to be a cash flow problem, because you have to have comics that are coming in, coming out, and keeping that revenue flowing, because you're not going to have third-party vendors sitting there saying, where's my cash? Oh, we're going to hold it for 90 days. Diamond did that. Nobody else is going to do that. So that's not going to work. And then for everybody else, they're just not going to be able to distribute their comics unless they go all digital. And I'm not sure how well that's going to go. So Diamond's demise, if you want to call it that, is going to be problematic for everybody. It's going to make the market a lot smaller. The comic shops in the direct market who have chosen to remain Diamond exclusive now are going to have to scramble. So their business is going to be significantly disrupted if they can pivot in time. If they can't, they're going to be in trouble. And then just folks are just going to see less comics on the shelves. That's just the way it is. Now, to Jim's point earlier about following the manga anime model, yeah, there is a lot that can be done there that I think would be better. The digital platform would work great for DC and Marvel. I think Didio was off his rocker when he was saying that he didn't want to do that because there's a lot to be earned there. And honestly enough, the whole thing about synergy between the comics and anime, which would mimic comics and animation for like DC as an example, this should be one for one. And the reason they do that is because these are great stories. They're inspired. And oddly enough, that mimics what Doc said at the beginning of the stream, which is Hollywood is just off their nuts. They're off their rocker because they want to try and put their own spin. They think they can improve on the original. If they can make it better than the original. 9 times out of 10, they can't. There are exceptions, but there are always exceptions. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. And so if you bring that back to where that falls in line with, say, DC and Marvel as an example, I'm not going to out myself too much, but I used to work in magazine publishing, right? So I kind of know how a lot of the bigger name magazine
coming out of the closet. Okay.
No, not that kind of coming out. Okay. Anyway, there was a phrase that we have in the industry. It's called point of passion. That point of passion means when somebody is a fan of something and they get right to a tipping point when they become such a fan that they want to collect everything about that thing that they are a fan of. You see this a lot in sports. You know, if somebody's a diehard Eagles fan, they want the jerseys, they want the plaques, they want the flags, they want the swag, they want the mugs, they want everything. Doesn't matter what it is. That is called the point of passion. When you reach that, when you pass that point, you want everything, regardless of if it's exactly the same or different. Comics should learn that same lesson because manga has exactly figured that out as well. That when somebody gets to be a fan of Naruto, let's pick on Naruto. If somebody's a fan of Naruto and they hit that point of passion, they want the stickers, they want the posters, they want the collected volumes, they want the magazines, they want it on Blu-ray, they want it on DVD, they want everything, even if it's all exactly the same story. And by all accounts, the manga and the anime is the same story. If you follow, it's close. It's not perfect, but it's close. They want everything. DC and Marvel, they had that point of passion. They had it for a very long time with characters like Batman and Superman and the X-Men and to a certain degree the Avengers and what have you. But what happens is because they don't keep that synergy between the written and the animated and the film, now when they're collecting it, the passion is fractured because the thing they fell in love with in the comics doesn't match what they're seeing in the animation doesn't match what they're seeing in the live action film. And so now their passion is muted. They're actually harming themselves by not keeping and maintaining that synergy. And now they have nowhere to go because they're trying to reestablish that momentum, but their fan base is fractured in separate directions. And it's just creating a big headache for everybody. Most of what's happening from the comics industry for Western periodical comics is self-inflicted stupidity. And until they fix that, they're going to have a really tough time surviving what's happening next once Diamond gets through their proceedings, especially if they fail. It's going to be a big problem for everybody.
Very, very good. Callum says, Sully, you missed my Hannibal Lecter question. We covered that, right? You said you wanted that. Top Geek.
Well, I do want to dispute something. I never said that Dan Slott was Wagyu. Wagyu is quality. We do with chuck meat and something that's really fatty.
Stew meat.
You got to stew it, man. And so cheap cuts are to be braised because all that fat and connective tissue just melts into deliciousness over time.
He's 80-20. The problem is it's not the right 80-20.
More like 60-40 with Slot. It's more like 60.
He's 80-20 ground beef. The problem is it's 80% fat this time instead of.
But Sully covered it. We
got that.
Thought about it too hard. Dylan was freaking out.
You were probably slipping a shrimp on the bobby there, Rossi pal.
Dion says people on Reddit are saying that Aaron Sparrow is pro-genocide in real life due to his current X-Men X tweet. Doc is right. Hashtag Tom King is shit.
That's what you get for believing Reddit then.
Reddit's the dumbest fucking community in the history of the world. It's like where all the most retarded people get together and say the most retarded shit possible.
Yeah, basically. Reddit's worthless.
I felt some water that wasn't wet the other day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. You know why? Because they just peed themselves. That's it.
There's a reason on every social media channel will be somebody like idiots of Reddit, and you'll just be reading. It's like, this can't be a human being, but there's like a 40% chance that a real person said that shit. So
yeah,
I don't know, Dylan. Are you a Reddit guy? You seem like a Redditor, maybe.
No, the only thing I use Reddit for is I browse the 4K Blu-ray Reddits because they just go over what's on sale. That's literally the only.
Oh,
Reddit
you
I
just
look
want
at.
information. You don't want the conversation.
Yeah. I don't post anything on Reddit. I just
That's but I'm sure they are saying that about Aaron because they're fucking morons. That's what you get from Reddit. I always stay away from there.
It was me who said it.
Jim.
It was me. It's my Reddit profile.
And now he took his spot on today's show.
Yeah. It's my plan.
Fuck that pro-genocide asswipe.
Nazi. I'm out of here.
Cyclops was right. Cyclops was right.
Go Eagles.
HH, the boys at Sigma Comics. Shout out to the Thinking Critical team from MegaCon. Comics Mint and Sigma Comics getting it done in Orlando. Representing aficionados everywhere. Support indies and Thinking Critical. That is awesome. We've got HH, Aaron, Drew, other friends of the channel all there having a good time.
Say hi to Jeremy Adams from us, please.
Absolutely. Avoid Dennis Camp. It looks like he's afraid of getting
snatched up.
No, he looks like he smells like shit, is what he looks like. The guy looks like he hasn't fucking bathed in 8 years. That fucking hair looks like he hasn't touched
soap. You should use some conditioner.
And a face mask.
Oh, conditioner. Use some water and some cleaner. He looks disgusting.
Which is worse, the Dennis Camp posting a picture which looks like he hasn't bathed in 6 days, or the fact that Jeremy Adams has to sit next to Tim Sheridan?
Oh, they're friends.
He and Tim Sheridan are buddies.
Yeah, don't hold that against Jeremy.
Yeah,
it's funny having people shaking Jeremy Adams fan and then look over at Tim Sheridan and go, "Yeah, I'm gonna go over and smell Dennis Camp shit hair."
Yeah, Jeremy Adams and Tim Sheridan are kind of like that fat girl that's friends with the skinny pretty girl. Like you have to tolerate the fat girl because
he's the Klingon.
Yeah,
but at 3 a.m. starts looking really.
No, still doesn't look good.
And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this from last year. Like, Jeremy was always at his table, and I only saw Sheridan once over 3 days over Fan Expo Boston. But Jeremy was always at a station.
Well, some people
there's
are
actually a demand for him.
Didn't you have a problem with Michael Conrad doing the same thing? Like he kept just bailing on you, so you kept trying to talk to him. Oh, yeah. I think it's you, Sally.
That wasn't me. Sorry.
Sleeve McDackle, the irony is that if comics were more accessible to normies, there would be more fans who become serious collectors, and comic shops could thrive by selling trades, collector editions. A lot of what I was kind of getting into, I think that Marvel and DC, ironically, Jim, could kind of get away with their current strategy of treating comic books as collectibles rather than stories if they actually were very, very accessible and people were mass consuming them. There would just be a lot of people going out for all those stupid variant covers.
That's the plan. That's the plan. So they when we say why, and we say why are these stories terrible? It's because that's just the vehicle to get a cover and a variant cover. Yeah. They don't care. They don't care. And people are saying in the comments again about the idea where newer writers come in and they say, one of the big ones, I know she's not great, but Leah Williams says that she wanted to get to the point where, okay, I'm reading Power Girl. I'm doing all this. Where do we go from here? And they said, oh, don't read that shit. the good stuff. Just do what you want. And that's what she's doing, and it fails. But yet people tell me all the time that Catwoman sold at one point covers, Poison Ivy cover. That's all it is. It's covers and collectibles.
Well, that's what the uncovered titles are. You've seen a few of them, right? For Harley Quinn and a few others where it's just
I'm surprised you didn't try reviewing those, Gabe, by the way.
I almost did one. I didn't realize what it was, and then I opened it.
Wasn't there an entire comic book of Nightwing butt covers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was.
They're just testing the waters to see how much they can make off that without having to do any
USAID must have fucking sponsored that one. You know what I mean? Nobody in their right mind would have fucking done that without the government forcing them to do it.
It did occur to me it would be interesting to find out how much Marvel and DC may have been getting from federal subsidies. I don't know if they actually are, but I'm wondering now.
It does make you question the reality that we've been living in. But yeah, they should. If it was definitely more accessible, I think their collector strategy would be very, very successful right now. Federico de la Casa. Hi, guys. In Italy, most comics are too expensive, tons of variants, expensive edition, and are bought by old fans with cash. Boys and girls buy manga.
Now, is that Italian comics or is that American comics brought over to Italy?
He's talking about American comics. Probably talking about European comics, too, because those are not cheap because they're like fucking magazine format with like the best paper quality possible.
Yeah. And one of the things too that we haven't talked about, the idea of manga's kind of still cool. And the regular DC Marvel comics, they're just not cool anymore. It's not cool to be hanging around with a comic book there like Sully would be in his back pocket. It's manga is cool. People like it, and there's a factor there.
It's not just in Italy, and people are talking about it in Europe. I can tell you here in the Philippines, I've got family members that tell me 40 years ago, maybe not 40 years ago, but like 50 years ago, American comic books were everywhere here. And the older gentlemen in the neighborhood would go and buy a copy of every comic book. They would bring it back to the neighborhood. They would lay them out, and the kids would just show up and start reading them all day long. And that's how it was for years upon years. There are American comic books are available, I think, at 5 shops in the entire country now. They're in one city, and manga is available everywhere. It's completely replaced them. They allowed themselves to be removed as like the central or part of the cultural zeitgeist, not just really in America, but also in other places where you saw American comic books thrive, which the Philippines obviously is one, and that's why you have so many awesome Filipino comic book artists and writers and stuff like that. But
if you talk to younger kids and you say, "Oh, what do you think about Batman?" They'll probably think movies or whatever. But if you start talking to them like, "Oh, what do you think about like My Hero Academia or something like that?" They go nuts. They're like, "Oh my God, I read that. I can't believe you read it, you old asshole," and stuff like that. And it's a lot cooler to them. Plus, it's as a whole a lot better right now.
Batman and Superman's the coolest, but
I'm telling you,
figured it out yet.
With my kids, and my kids are older now, but they really don't care about Batman or Superman at all.
Yeah.
They don't.
I mean, try asking a kid what's their favorite Poison Ivy moment, and nothing. Fire and Ice.
It's got to be when Drew Barrymore was that the sequel.
That was a sequel.
My favorite was when Clayman drew her sexy dead. That was my favorite.
Was it one of them, Alyssa Milano?
No, Alyssa Milano was in the sequel.
Alyssa Milano was the sequel. Drew Barrymore is the original. Okay, I'll go with the original.
All right.
And then you watch Embrace the Vampire.
Exactly. That's
that's her best one.
Slee McDakel, the big two should print comics on cheaper paper for convenience stores. Resell it at higher quality in trades and at comic book shops. That's exactly what the original premise was. And what when you went to the direct market, it was $1 more, or maybe it was a quarter more. I don't know. Doc was there when that happened, but it was more expensive, but you had higher quality. And then they just kind of phased out the lower quality stuff over time. But I agree. In
the early 80s,
newsprint is great.
I mean, in the early 80s, you had newsprint, the newsstand copies, but then you had at the comic book shop, you had the Baxter paper things like Legion of Superheroes or Infinity Incorporated, the better paper. It was literally twice the cover price at $1.50. And like, here I am as a kid, like in 84, like, oh, I really want Infinity Incorporated, but like, that means I get less comics this week, but it was always worth it. And it was a thrill to find those too. Better pages. I mean, better.
But that was the original idea. but they essentially eventually solely embraced in the direct market. I guess is that start with Dazzler, Doc? Is that the first book that ever went only to direct market?
I believe so. Yes,
I believe so as well. They even put it in the newsprint.
Yeah,
and it was highly successful.
It was.
Dazzler book like 125,000 copies.
But here's the thing. That works when you have a feeder system.
Top product. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you have an industry that is growing.
Yeah.
Where you're now not only feeding the reader market, but the collector market. The direct market was the attempt to feed, and now you created a one-stop shop, so they don't have to just go to the newsstand to buy their new comics and then find a comic shop to buy their back issues. They could buy everything at the direct market. Short-sightedness doesn't recognize the feeder system, and that's where the publishers started going downhill. I understand doing exclusives for the direct market, but I don't recommend doing whole titles. Or if you do, that's for small publishers.
So what do you think, Doc? What if we did something like Batman Brave and the Bold, right? The current run, made it all black and white, so you can reduce and put it on newspaper print, and then had that magazine size and put it on the checkout lines at Walmart and Target. And then you do a single chapter that's like the first part of the story, and then at the bottom of the last page it says continued in Batman number 162 or whatever like that. So they get it, they get hooked if they like it, and they are now incentivized to kind of pick up
one issue is
the regular floppies or the trade, wherever else.
One issue is never enough to hook a new reader.
Also, it would be hell of expensive to get yourself at the checkout aisle in fucking Walmart and Target. That's probably the most expensive places in the stores.
Yeah. Do I think that... Here's the thing. Again, you can't put different product in that store than you're putting in the direct market. It has to be the same thing. Because the idea is to move them flawlessly into that. But they also look, I mean, ask any reader over like 40 that started reading comics back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They found them in their normie spaces, and they'd read them 3, 4, 6 months before they even realized that a dedicated comic shop existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we had pocket change too. It was based upon a kid's pocket change, something that it's like
it was like really a pack of baseball cards or a candy bar or a soda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And
the spinner rack in 7-Eleven or whatever else.
Yeah, and they read it there, and they're gonna miss an issue here or there, but they're like, "Oh, I remember I liked this one, this title last time," and then they find 3 or 4 different books that they like. They also experiment with a bunch of stuff that they'll buy one issue and never read again. And they find 3 or 4 things, and then they become a dedicated reader, and they're doing it through, these are inexperienced readers. They're not concerned about fucking condition. They're not concerned about, it having a crease on that, like a broken spine. They don't give a shit about any of that. They don't care about the variant covers.
I think we've talked about the spinner racks enough, fellas. Sally says, not just manga, but now manhwa has exploded in popularity, replicating a similar model that manga has utilized as well. Absolutely. If you go to the Korean market with manhwa, also primary digitally as well, and manhwa is blowing up kind of over the world. Jim's a huge manhwa fan, right?
Love it.
Exactly.
I'm more of a manga fan. But also, just to point out, when we were talking
manhwa has a lot more colored.
It does. I actually like, and that's the thing too. I mean, obviously, when manga explodes, and the idea that there is you have to learn to read it backwards the way and it's black and white. There's these hurdles that you have to jump, but yet people jump them, and it's wildly popular. And then when you do go, the trades come out very quick is another thing. And when we were talking about the trades and things, they're very cheap. You end up where, I mean, I even just looked while we were going, though the prices, but a lot of them are just under $10. They're $9.99 to get 200 pages of a deal. That's the other thing too, while people will, collect and stuff, but it's just the whole model works. Obviously, you just can't copy it directly, but use some of the things that work, but they don't seem to want it. It's like they're afraid to, like things that Doc are saying. They don't want to go back because that somehow admits that they did something wrong. They don't want to do because they are always afraid of shit like that. I don't understand. It's desperate times. They need to figure out something. So
he also mentions Webtoons has exploded in popularity too, and a lot of Webtoons are free.
Yeah.
It's
DC has Webtoons.
They do. They got the Wayne Family Adventures.
Wayne Family Adventures. A lot of people do like that. So,
Yep. Mech Trap Rack. Jump Plus let me read the first 3 numbers and the latest 3 numbers of a series in one shots for free. And if I want to read the rest, I just pay a subscription, and it has a ton of series. It's so easy. I'm assuming he's talking about Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I personally I hate that term numbers. It drives me nuts. But no, I have Jump Plus. I end up, they also have like Manga Plus is really good. And Manga Plus is good. They have a subscription model, but if you go there, they have a lot of stuff for free as well. There's tons of stuff for free that you can try out. The manga, that's the thing. They're
DC has stuff for free too, but they don't tell anybody.
And I said that in the chat that when this actually, I think when Mech Rap ended up saying this, they do have stuff for free and have stuff day and date. They will put out stuff. Unfortunately, it's usually, if you see that, you're like, yeah, that's what I want to avoid. A lot of the stuff is the bullcrap, but they do have it. And so
they have 20 for free, everybody.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're like, all right, what, Lex in the City, all right. But yeah, you end up where there are some stuff like that, but you don't know about it. And then when you see it, the problem is on the Shonen Jump app, when you see like everything there, like, oh, I can check all these out for free first. When you go to the DC app, it's like, oh, that one thing and everything else is for pay. And it kind of gets overwhelming, or like, oh, I'm not going to pay for this. And you just kind of delete it. So, but their manga is good, and they're confident in it that they think if you end up reading for free, all the things, if you actually go and start a series on Shonen app, and the Shonen Jump app, you could read the entire thing for free if you're there each time it comes out. And yet they don't mind that because they know it's so good that you'll buy it in trade. The trades come out quick and they're cheap. All that, it just works. It's worked for them.
Well, that's also why they swap them
out. There's a new fucking, they don't call it an issue. Was it a new
chapter?
Number?
Chapter.
I don't number, but they are chapters. And I said at one point when people were like, oh, manga isn't that big or whatever, oh, it's this or that, we kind of got past that argument. That's like 2019 or whatever. But the idea that everything that you see that is outselling, Batman, all these things, it's been offered for free first. That's incredible. The idea that this stuff could be read for free, but yet people buy it at that amount because it's so good.
And that's also why it's so important to be able to swap the creators out or a title out that isn't working. Just because they give the first ones for free, they know they're watching all those analytics like a hawk. I mean, they're circling, they're just making sure they're looking at every single number, understanding exactly where everything is. And if something doesn't hook, it's out of there.
And that's what I'm saying. That with the Shonen Jump, especially, if a creator comes out and says, hey, the next person who tells me I ruined this, you're done. You are out. And if the book ends up pushing something, there was a book that I really liked it, but it was kind of dealing with the idea of like plagiarism, but people did like plagiarism out, and that thing got canceled immediately.
Was it Red Riding?
No. It was what was it? I always forget the name. It wasn't
Phoenix.
A Shonen Jumps would show up in a microwave, and they played this deal of this guy getting things. It was really good, but the idea though is if things don't hit, if suddenly somebody's like, oh, that sucks, it's done. It ends up getting cut. You have a U-19, under 19 that these things end, and they do. They do.
Yeah, you don't see them getting caught up with, well, I've got somebody on a contract for 12 or 24 issues. They don't deal with any of that stuff.
No, and it could be the biggest.
Says manga succeeds in Japan because reading it is cultural there. It's mainstream. 70% from the ages of 10 to 60 read it. Weekly Shonen Jump is 200 pages of multiple comics on newsprint for $4, and it's everywhere.
And that's true, but just think though it succeeds here as well, and it succeeds in England and Italy and Philippines. There is more to it just being.
Well, that's Doc's loss leader right there. $4 on newsprint.
Yeah.
Well, not only. Well, no, I don't even know if it is a loss leader. At
it
that
probably,
point.
but I don't think they're making a cut about it.
when you have, I'm not saying it's going to make a ton of money, but I'm not saying it's losing money. When you have 70% of a population all consuming that product, you're able to spread your costs so little.
Well, I don't think they're saying 70% of people read weekly Shonen Jump. I think they're just saying they read some manga.
They do. They're not necessarily reading Shonen Jump, but you have they're reading manga. Mm-hmm. So when you're spreading it out over millions of sales every month, that now all of a sudden your cost goes way the hell down. It's growth. You have you manage to spread your costs, and that's where Marvel and DC and the American comic industry has fucked up. They've shrank themselves so they have to keep increasing prices. And
it's a boutique product. It's not a product for everybody.
Exactly. It's like when you have like new technology for your home or car. Remember flat screen TVs in the late 90s? They were $25,000. Now you can buy one for like $150.
When you're a thin margin business, the worst thing in the world you can do is introduce friction. You don't want anything getting in the way of somebody buying your product.
Yes.
By coordinating themselves off into a direct market, which is an LCS, and there are few and far between, that is the worst kind of friction you can introduce.
Yeah.
They have to overcome that.
Yes. And unfortunately, the way to do that is stepping backwards. You can definitely do that digital strategy, but you have to make reading sequential storytelling a regular part of a large percentage of the population's life. Right now it's not. It's only 2%. Maybe.
And what's funny is when we say that, like what's happening right now with kids, like we're actually setting up later for it to be manga. You end up having all these kids that are reading manga, and more so than I've ever seen, reading, say, a Batman comic and things like that. And so later on, that'll be because that's what they have to do with the regular comics too, make it so that the kids want to like it. So then when we do get, like you said, Doc, you start doing and trying to emulate what Japan had before. But we're doing that now with manga. Like kids love that. And so later they're going to be used to reading that and that way. And that's not how the big two are doing.
And I doubt manga is going to make the same mistake that the publishers did by ghettoizing themselves into tiny little specialty stores exclusively.
Well, and they also, and they also don't have, there's nothing with, say, variant covers and nothing with just collectors that drive that up. It's actually people reading the stuff.
Right. I just looked it up. Shonen Jump, weekly Shonen Jump has a paid circulation of about 1.4 million copies per week. That's people paying money for this, 200-page newsprint book.
I subscribed to it at one point, and it's in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese. I just like getting it for a bit. I had to drop it, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Sally says, yes, American comics will do monthly releases, but there are various popular manga that have monthly releases as well. Quality is still the best foundation. And I do think in the end, Dylan, that is the biggest accessibility issue. It's not even that it's only in the direct market. I think the biggest accessibility issue to comics right now is the quality itself. That even if you're able to find it, that you probably wouldn't want to stick with it at this point.
Yeah, that's the hard part about recommending comics to people, because everyone's done this. If you ever recommend a comic to someone, there's about 15 caveats you get. You're like, all right, check this out, but not this. Make sure it's from this writer. And it's like this series. It's like you give a bunch of different caveats instead of like with anime or with manga. You can just be like, check out this series. There you go. That's all you got to say. It's a lot harder with comics where you have to explain what's to check out, what not to, because most of it's garbage.
Me and Wes mentioned that on the Hot or Not podcast this week, the idea of recommending things. And you do have caveats. It's true. You have to say, well, read this, but not the first 5. Don't mind that issue. Or when they do that, and you don't have that. It's.
Yeah. Then Sally says, funny how my question from a few weeks ago has turned into an entire topic. I'm actually honored. I didn't think this was going to become a topic of manga versus comic books. I don't think that was actually what I anticipated, but I cannot control where the conversation goes. I just mentioned manga, and then obviously Jim's a manga fan, and Doc's anti-manga and digital comic books.
Anti-tarot card.
Tinder to a fucking bunch of sticks.
And I'll tell you the thing too is here's where I think the basis of why manga succeeds, and this is I'll blow Gabe's mind here, which isn't hard, but the idea of all this is that if you talk about a manga, you always talk about the character because they end up really giving you the best character work. Usually the first chapter or two is character. The story's kind of on the side to kind of go, but they don't get to the storyline later. So what you end up doing is loving the characters. If somebody says anything, oh, why is Chainsaw Man cool? You're not going to talk about, well, this little story here or this arc. It's going to be about the character. Oh my God, this character here. But either of the idea that these characters in the big two have been around so long, but it's so much where these writers come in and don't know the characters. They're shoving their own stories in. So when you end up talking about it, you are like, oh, well, like Dylan said, you have to say like, well, this one arc was really cool, but then this wasn't, whatever. If you end up setting up the characters the way that manga does, you will go through the thick and thin with them. You can have a down arc, but you still love the characters because you know the characters and you end up really connecting to the characters more so than I think that any of the Western stuff. And it's something that really got me because that's one of the most important things for me when I'm reading is the characters themselves, not necessarily the story, but the characters. And you don't get that much anymore in the big two.
Yeah, that doesn't blow my mind because that's what manga does. I think way better than the Western comics is the characters progress. They're on a journey. You are along for their journey. Western comics have way given up on that. Batman is stuck in a loop. Superman's stuck in a loop. Spider-Man's stuck in a loop. And they're not progressing at all.
Rhaegar in the comments said, Chainsaw Man is cool because he has a chainsaw on his head. That is true. But when you dig deep in it, I think if anybody reads, and if anybody hasn't, and you read the first chapter of Chainsaw Man, there is no way that you're not going to end up loving the characters immediately and wanting to read more because it ends up, it does so much in one chapter. It's oversized, but it's one chapter that gives you so much that you want to follow this character for however long it goes because it hits the heartstrings. It ends up being very emotional. It ends up being very relatable at points. Even with a guy with a chainsaw on a head by the end, it's done so well. And you get like a Dylan, he's a huge Superman fan. Even with stuff being good, do you really get that core of Superman? And Dylan's a big Philip Kenny Johnson fan. And why do people like him? Because they said he gets the character. That's so few and far between anymore that you don't really feel the hope or feel the epicness of the character because everybody just comes in and tells their bullshit stories and doesn't care. And it's just one of those things and I love DC Comics, Marvel. I love DC for the most. That's my deal. And it kills me when I see people say, I want to burn it to the ground or whatever. I don't want that. I want it to be better. And it just isn't right now. And it's because they've just lost their way. They don't even know these characters anymore. And it doesn't deal with character.
Mr. DC Comics says, Marvel and DC ever partnered with the U.S. school system, like having their best trades in school libraries, comic stores next to schools? I don't believe that's the case, Doc.
I don't believe so. Generally speaking, the U.S. school system has kind of looked down upon comics.
That's true. A lot of times I had one of my nephews wanted to do a book report about a graphic novel. And they told him it wasn't eligible, even though it's a fucking story.
They didn't care. It didn't matter that you were getting kids to read. Now granted, they do have some graphic novels it's just trade paperbacks in Scholastic now because the book fair was a thing. The best we could do when I was a kid was
I love that
Calvin and Hobbes.
I got Garfield.
The DC did do some stuff with Scholastic, but it was specific for Scholastic. It was like, here's a kid's book using the characters.
Yeah, there's a Scholastic Miles Morales book that outsold anything Marvel's ever done with Miles.
Yeah.
There were times too that you would hear books like, why is this book continuing? Because the sales are terrible, like a Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. And you would hear the idea, oh, well, that was picked up by a bunch of libraries and schools, but that's few and far between.
And additionally, Scholastic has a captive audience. Let's just say most of their, if memory serves from when I was a kid, it probably hasn't changed that much. 90% of the
captive audience, they make you go home with the fucking list to your parents.
Yeah, you have to go home with the list, and 90% of what's on there is the least fun things to read that you will ever find.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a caveat there, right? Well, everybody loves Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl from that Scholastic book trade, but at the same time, it's either that or The History of Rome or another graphic adaptation of Little Women.
Yeah,
you know, what are they going to pick up, right? They're
exactly
pick the ones with the dinosaur. So it's
they
said they have these huge numbers, but it's sort of inflated.
And I never read books about midgets, so I'm out of that. I think that.
Carlitos Figueroa, comics today face challenges like character representation and stagnant development. A solution is to craft authentic stories that engage readers and challenge characters. The focus should be on finding fresh narratives.
True.
Well, that's another problem, Doc, because you just saw what happened to fucking Liefeld. Why would you ever give these companies any of your fresh ideas?
You wouldn't. In fact, that's been kind of the standard for going back a good number of years now. I mean, how many times have we heard creators saying, I'm keeping my best ideas for my creator-owned stuff? And while creator-owned, I'm really happy that all the creators have been able to capitalize on by keeping their best ideas and doing their own image book. First of all, it gets out to 10% of the audience that it ever would have if they would have used those ideas during their big 2 work. The thing maybe lasts for 6 to 12 months max in like 95% of cases. And it's like the worst of all worlds, except for a very short period of time for the creator. Sure, they don't get fucked over by Marvel and DC anymore, because when Marvel and DC makes $1 billion movie, they don't get frozen out like Liefeld. I guess that's nice, but at the same time, there is no $1 billion movie when they're doing it as an indie work. 10,000 people read it max instead of 150,000. There is 0% chance of that thing. Well, like 0.1% chance of that thing lasting for more than 12 issues, unless you're Robert Kirkman. And even that, how many things has he made that have flopped? And versus for every Walking Dead and Invincible that he had.
Yeah. And with this too, the idea that Carlitos, it's true, but from everybody I've talked about or talked to, you can't pitch comics anymore. So when you're going to craft authentic stories and engage readers and challenge characters, that's going to be me having a story that I've always wanted to tell about Wonder Woman. And then I say, oh my God, look, I want to do this story. And they're like, no, you don't fit who we need to write this book. And then they go and hire somebody and say, you do this. These people haven't had in their mind or even fans of the characters. So what ends up happening is Tom King's admitted at points where he just has a story aside. Like, I always wanted to tell this story. It never fits the character. That's why his comics are because he just ends up having that to be the basis, but it was never going to be a Wonder Woman story. It was never going to be a Supergirl story. It was just a story he had around. Or you have the editors like, well, we just want you to do this, this, and this. And they have no clue either. So without pitching things, like Jeremy Adams at one point, I believe it was him, just kept tweeting and saying, I have what I think is the greatest Wonder Woman story, and I want to tell it, but they won't let me. I've asked them and they won't let me. And he's one of the guys who people love, and they just won't do it. Somehow they let Tom King do shit, but nobody has like that idea of, I've always wanted to tell this story with this character. You end up having these writers, when they get put on an X-Men book, they're like, oh, I really like the 3rd X-Men movie, X3, like what? Like crazy stuff. And they're never fans of the characters or have a story that they always wanted to tell. So all you get is generic shit. And, and then when they don't read the things, what you then get with, say, a Batman is a continuing recycle of, everybody has to kill Batman. Then you get to the idea of Batman with a brother. Then everything is just redone and recycled, and it's not good. And that's why I think Batman especially is just having problems right now, because nobody has that story they want to tell or need to tell. They're just hired to tell it and just go through the motions.
Well, I mean, the topic of the conversation today was Diamond, but if you want to look at what's plaguing the big two more than anything else, bar none, in my opinion, it's editorial. Their editors are terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The worst, most toxic, most destructive force among the big two right now is their editorial staff.
Yeah. And Marvel with their editorial staff, say Nick Lowe, Tom Brevoort, and these guys, they might just be around too long and need to move on or whatever. But at DC, you never really even know. You don't care who the editors are. And when you do then look, you're like, who are these people? Like, who are these people? You end up where it's just this nonsense of none of them are writers. None of them are former writers. They just end up getting this job, and it just doesn't work. And everybody I hear, Marvel people coming over to DC, one of their big things was, it's great over here. They don't give a shit about continuity. They don't care about past things. We can just do what we want. Leah Williams said at the one point, hey, everybody, come on over. This is great. We don't have to deal with shit. And that's why you get comics like you do.
So Jen, you don't feel some kind of way? You don't get a reaction when I see the name Brittany Holger?
No, I do a bit. Again, there's other. I'm talking about like normal deal, like they don't know, because smartly they don't get out and engage or antagonize fans, but they're worse. They don't know the things. That's what, and even Doc has talked about at points. It does get frustrating a lot with Marvel, because there are guys like a Tom Brevoort who should know better and does know better, but doesn't
he used to
do it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that isn't. Maybe it's just time for him to go off and hang
off this mortal coil.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go that far. But the idea, maybe go off and own a haberdashery. I think he would love that. But the idea though is like, who's running the place? I said before, even with Dan Didio, with people not liking him, you did have somebody who would engage with people and actually, you could even focus your anger on him, and then the writers kind of, played off, free and clear. But even that, DC, you yell at Jim Lee, but he's not doing it. It's just like a ship that's just drifting. And it's bad. But
Mr. DC Comics speaks up. Animation is king. I don't know why Marvel and DC ignore that fact. That's how a lot of kids from the 90s got introduced to these characters.
I agree completely. The only problem is the animation studios and the television networks and the television studios that try to get these things made as animation change them. They constantly fucking change them.
Oh yeah, go watch Teen Titans Go, and then try to read a Teen Titans book.
Go watch. Honestly, go watch 90s X-Men for the X-Men animated series. Fine. You go and tell them. The number of times I've ended up in arguments with friends about X-Men history, and they're like, well, the animated. I'm like, oh, fuck. That's where you're getting your. I'm like, that's not the right continuity. It's not even the right universe. Fucking Morph doesn't exist. He was in the first episode. He doesn't exist as a character.
And also, to be fair, Teen Titans Go is better than the current Titans run.
That last issue of Titans was fine. I thought the Titans was pretty. That was pretty funny. The Lady Frost stuff.
Yeah.
Dion says Tom King is the Kanye West of DC at this point. He's not that cool, although Kanye's kind of gross.
Hey, Tom King doesn't parade his wife naked in front of everybody. So
that we know of.
We're aware of. Maybe he does it at the DC office.
Felt bad for her.
Honestly, at this point, I think she knows. I think she gets off on it. So I don't really care.
Yeah, that was weird. Cryogenic Gamer. Wouldn't it be better if comic book format moved to more of a magazine format with a bunch of stories? So I think what you're not talking about magazine so much is like an anthology format, that
was kind of what they tried to do at Walmart stuff.
Yeah.
Anthologies don't sell. They've never sold. They never will sell.
And there's been talk that if things got really bad, what you would have is just a monthly Action Comics, a monthly Batman, and it would be more of that just to keep the rights and things like that. But that's what you do when shit's
That's
really
last
bad.
resort.
Yeah, that's the crazy things, and I've heard that. But
I think
that's
magazine industry is more on its deathbed than even comic books, because at least there's a collectability issue with comics. Magazines don't have that.
Yeah, and the magazine industry has tried, because they're borderline news.
Well, Gabe knows better than we do. He was in the magazine industry. Is that right, Gabe?
Here.
Magazines are having a tough time. They do, but here's where they're different. They do rely upon things like bundled subscriptions. There's a huge dependence on in-page advertising. For example, like the most profitable magazine that exists in the United States, at least, and possibly several other countries, page for page, 100% is Parade magazine, which is that insert you get in your Sunday newspaper, because the distribution is so wide and it's cheap because they essentially give it away for free. Now, I'm not saying be like Parade, but what I am saying is those are the two lessons that we've just been talking about. It has to be widely distributable, and it has to have a low cost point. So you have to reduce that friction of getting it in people's hands. You do that, you can make money, but you have to solve those problems. It has to be widely distributed, and it has to be affordable. The boutique stuff that DC and Marvel have leaned into is the exact opposite of what's going to help them move forward. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. They might be better off just doing trades, but I don't even know at this point.
Nope.
Sally Akibe says, I meant Korean Webtoons, not American. Yeah, no, we got it. Webtoons is a Korean company. But there's certainly lots of American comic books on there, too. Anybody can get on there. Our friends Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini have got a Common America Webtoon up there. DC's up there. But Webtoon's great because it's so cheap because it's free. Dill Lindsay, even if the spinner rack returns, modern comics are designed for trades. Older comics were usually self-contained stories, much easier to pick up. 100% true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to ask with the Webtoons, though, when you have people, is that something that you're going to have like somebody in their 40s, like, man, I've been reading Webtoons all my life. I think that's like a really,
I think that's how Solo Leveling is so popular that, it was the best-selling or one of the best-selling collected editions. Now it's got a show on Netflix, I believe. That was Webtoon.
I read it as a manga, format as well. It's really good. But yeah, that's big. Again, though, I'm saying
I think that was a lot of women reading that, right?
A lot of the Webtoons, maybe I don't know. Some Webtoons almost seems like I used to watch Barney when I was a kid. I don't know. It just seems like something that's like in a certain time, and then you kind of move on to bigger and better.
I think Webtoons is bigger now than it's ever been. I think it's only getting bigger though.
But probably with like the ages and things like that. I'm saying I don't know that there's a lot of 60-year-olds, sitting around.
Yeah, but maybe that's an entry point. Something that
but that's what I'm asking. Do you think it would be something that people would continue like going through, like you're 35 and still, watching or reading the Webtoons? I don't know. And then the format could change. There's a lot of things, but I don't know. Down with
Comic Journey. We've lost touch that this hobby was meant to be disposable entertainment. Need to stop catering solely to adults and bringing kids back in. That's everything. That's toys too, man. Yeah. Toys are so expensive. And Dylan, I mean, I know you still play with toys, but they're not even made for guys like you anymore. They're made for Gabe. People that don't even want to pull them out of the box. They just leave them up there as a trophy.
Yeah, they're made for Aaron to do all his scenarios with. Yeah.
Well, at least Aaron plays with his toys.
Need to grow up.
No, where's Eric? We need Eric Shea on the
really. That guy, every day, like 8 things coming in.
Oh my goodness. McFarlane Toys is making him bankrupt.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, McFarlane Toys does some fantastic stuff, but man, it is not cheap.
No.
Well, in the toy market, it's actually quite affordable compared to a lot of its competitors. But yeah, you should be able to throw a comic book in your back pocket and not worried about if you've destroyed the value of the book.
Yeah, it's the same comment. It's the friction comment, right? If it's prestige and expensive, it's not disposable. If it's not disposable, it's not good enough for the masses. You want entertainment for the masses. That's how you're going to keep your revenue flowing. And as long as they coordinate off themselves, it's not going to work.
And the manufactured collectibles are never a long-term viable thing, and that's what they've turned themselves into. They've turned themselves into the Franklin fucking Mint. You know what makes something valuable?
Bobbleheads.
Making it a disposable
Hogs.
product that
Elvis plates.
A disposable product that survives with
That you only have enough room in your house for. You're like, well, I would like to get this new fucking Funko Pop, but I really don't have any room anymore, so I guess I'm off the Funko Pop wagon, right?
Yes, correct. So a lot of those books become, when they are disposable product, most people dispose of them, which reduces their supply. But the people that are interested in it that come on later have now increased the demand for a dwindled supply, and you generate collectability. But that doesn't help the publishers, does it?
No.
And the Franklin Mint analogy actually works, but it's a little bit worse because it's like a Franklin Mint collector's plate, where the most valuable thing is the packaging box.
Yeah.
It's not even a plate.
Yeah.
Sally says, manga, manhwa, anime, you should indulge in Solo Leveling, Kaiju number 8, FMA
FMA.
Brotherhood, Fate
Yep.
Stay, Attack on Titan, Hitman Reborn, Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah,
Hakusho. Sorry, that.
I'll go on record. I think Kaiju number 8's the most overrated thing ever. But
I think Kaiju number 8's great. If you like Hulk,
I don't like
Kaiju
it.
number 8's fun. It's
I
good.
think that it has major points where it just loses track of everything and it's just boring as
How
shit.
dare you,
That's
sir?
me.
How dare
Hate
you?
it. I never
How
liked it.
dare you.
We had our weekly show.
This is the guy that
we
crapped
would
all over
review it.
MV.
We ended up where, it's Kaiju number 8. I'm telling you, for the longest time when we were reviewing it each week, I was bored crapless. I just did not like it at all. Take that.
This could be a media literacy thing, Jim.
Yeah, I'm a Nazi too.
You just don't know how to read.
No, I ended up, I think that a lot of it is the hype went on. I don't think that it's very good. I don't like it much at all. It's just me, but yeah, not enjoying it.
I like Spy X Family personally.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's because the characters, right? I mean, the characters are
It's the little
incredible.
girl.
Yeah, she's the best. And, Bond, the dog, and every character in that is great. Even the ones that are annoying in a great way. So that's a good one.
Yeah, Spy X
But,
Family
Dylan,
is great, but how long did they spend on the
Oh no!
I don't know,
breaking up.
Gabe, actually. That's a
Oh,
good
sorry.
point. You said how
Sorry.
long, and then it cut out. How long?
Yeah,
What?
you cut
How
out.
long can it be this awesome?
Now, how long did they spend on that cruise? How long did they spend on that cruise ship?
Oh, that ship, and that's one of the things that cruise ship was so long that became like a way of us explaining anything that went too long was, oh no, we're on the cruise ship again, because that was a long deal. But then again, you have like in Demon Slayer, the Entertainment District arc was freaking forever as well. So there's a lot of times that stuff happens.
Bill and Lizzie, another major difference is that Asian media still recognizes actual heroism. Western media is suffering from a lack of heroism, including comic books. And what we've learned, I think, over the last couple of weeks here, Dylan, is that Americans turning their backs on heroism and the hero's journey apparently was an enormous psyop to make us hate ourselves.
Which is so dumb. Like, but it's annoying. Yeah, they've tried to, like we talked, like you guys were talking about earlier, taking American values out of things. Like seeing people afraid to say the American way as part of Superman's True Just the American Way, saying a better tomorrow. This is the gayest thing I've ever heard.
It's a commie plot.
Is it as gay as Superman giving up his U.S. citizenship?
I mean, that was pretty
Right there.
dumb. But that was up there. But that was the only good thing about that was at least people couldn't say he's a government stooge anymore. That was the only good thing about that, because I had so many people that had only ever read Dark Knight Returns like, Superman's a government stooge.
That's
I hated
not
that
the real
retarded thing
Superman.
so much. I know, but there were a bunch of retards that had only ever read that.
It's
and
like
that
reading
was
Red
it.
Sun and be like, Superman's a fucking commie. He's like, that's not Superman. That's an alternate version. Come on.
Yeah, so that was the only decent part about that. But other than that, that was stupid. Yeah, but I hate taking his iconic slogan of "Truth, Just the American Way" just being like, and
problematic.
changing it.
Only a
Yeah, it's
commie would think
problematic,
that.
and it only means certain things. Like, that's the ideals of America. What are you talking about? Who has any problems with that? Are you an idiot? It doesn't
Commie.
change with like the regime that's currently in office. That doesn't change the American way. It's about the ideals, and instead they
Yeah.
had to change it to a better tomorrow, which is so lame. Just how is and seeing people try to justify that and act like a better tomorrow is a good thing. It's so
They're
stupid.
commies too.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, when you read these comics now and go with the manga, even with it, but you don't end up saying, "Man, I wish I was Superman now." You're like, I don't want to be that. Like, look at these
some
guys.
real issues.
So when you read something like, say, a My Hero Academia, it's like when it starts out, you want to like, oh my God, that could be me. I don't have powers, and then you get power. Oh, that'd be cool. And look at all this, and but you don't sit there and read anything now and say, I mean, even stuff as simple as Star Wars with New Hope and Luke. You kind of like, okay, I could be Luke. That would be really cool. And it goes with that heroism, but also the, fairy tale deal and whatnot.
500
Yeah, I mean, I could, probably. I would probably bet Luke and then beat him up if he beats me. But the idea, like, even that was the deal of everybody, like, and me personally, I hate my mom and dad. I hope that I have other parents. Like that was one of my big dreams. But they end up like losing track of why people would want to follow these characters. And a lot of times it's that you want to aspire to be them, not to have them be like you, which is a lot of times now is like, they want to have it like, oh man, look, Harley Quinn is just like me now. Like nobody cares. Batgirl had that issue when you had that, Batgirl and Burnside type of bullshit. But you want to read these people to aspire to them, and aspire to them means that they're heroic. It means that they're doing things that you would always want to do as a good person, but you wouldn't be able to. And you would want Superman to hang out in your neighborhood because then he would do good things, not come and lecture you about shit or say something else or whatever. And they've lost that. So it's not inspiring, but it's not fun. It's not fun at all because they're dealing with, I'm going to say this message and I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have that. And it just doesn't work. It works nothing. But that's what manga again does a lot of times. And just to mention too, people and if you don't read manga, you don't know that, it's not just manga. There's tons of companies, but there's also tons of different type of manga. So if you want to tell a story about some boy love, you could go and do that in that niche. You're not putting it in a major deal that's made for Shonen Jump stuff. The Shonen stuff is made for boys and guys, and so that's it has that kind of mission statement. And so you don't end up mixing and matching things. There's places for everything, and if people want to read something, they can go find it. It's there, but you don't have to force it into something and make it feel like an agenda or make it feel like you're trying to force people to read something that they wouldn't want to read. And that's another thing about it. But really, when I read comics, I like fun comics that make me feel like, man, I wish I was there. I wish that, I was Batman or Robin and things like that. But you don't get that anymore. I read it and thank God that I'm not Batman or Robin or Superman. And that's not how it should be. You should want to be them. And it's just not that anymore. And that's why I think a lot of kids wouldn't get into the stuff now, because what's the entry point of the excitement and the fun and stuff like that. So,
I mean, it's fair to say at this point that manga does about 5 or 10 things better than Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
Rate that 7. They should do a new type of digital comics that combine reading with motion comic animation. I don't want to hear Doc freak out about this too much, but they already tried that and it did not work at all, Doc.
No, they've tried it. Oh God.
Turn of the Century Marvel did that.
Yeah, Turn of the Century and stuff. Then they did around 2012, they did the Marvel Infinite comics, where it was the augmented reality. I remember Nova #1, where they introduced Sam Alexander Nova. They tried that where it'd be like Nova's actually flying through space because the backgrounds move, and they've tried it more times than I can count. It doesn't work.
Comic book doesn't need to be a cartoon, and a cartoon shouldn't be a comic book.
Yeah.
But eventually will there be some type of 3D comic book that has some interaction and sound effects? I don't know, but they have tried that.
And they call those video games.
Yeah, it was an enormous failure.
Yeah.
But I do think digital comics haven't hit their final form, because like the little pinch and drag type thing that you have to do with the PDFs that you're working with now, they probably got to do something better than that. And then finally, Dion, why didn't they give the Bat Family up? It sucks. It's too fucking big.
Yeah, I agree with you there now.
Dylan's the only one that likes these enormous families. The Superman family is ridiculous. We got
Every
Superman,
family is ridiculous.
Superman, Superwoman, Power Girl, Is John Kent still Superman? Or is he Superboy now?
He's still
think he's
Superman,
still
kind
Superman.
of. Yeah.
And he's
I
also
love-
Superman. We got Steel, Connor Kent,
2 steals.
Steel's
Keep
fucking
going.
niece.
Con Keenan. You got
God.
I'm telling you, I love big families.
Parasite was part of the
except
family,
mine.
Connor
I don't
Kent.
like mine.
Ugh.
Yeah.
This is with
Remember
every
Chris
superhero
Kent's
though.
still out
That
there
was what
somewhere.
was so annoying about Williamson's Green Arrow run was like you had 18,000 people in the Green Arrow family. It's like, oh man, Oliver's finally back. I get to read more about Oliver. No, you're reading about Red Canary.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Or Red Arrow.
Red Canary is one of the worst. Like
Yeah.
the girl was actually in a guitar shop and ended up having somebody the guy over the head with the guitar decide she's
Yeah.
gonna and
I
is
would have gave her
standing
the double J
at
treatment.
one point is standing next
Called
to
her a slap nut.
Doomsday and doesn't get killed. It's just like all of a sudden it's not
So
the
stupid.
character is so bad, so bad.
Yeah. Good point, Dion. They need a culling of the herd. Way too many characters. And that was a lot of fun. I didn't realize we were going to be talking about the difference between comics and manga for fucking 2 hours, but I think it worked, fellas.
Yeah, the natural progress of our awesome Saturday morning cartoon conversations. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Loving it.
It's time for some comic book recommendations. Dylan, do you got any books you want to recommend this week? It wasn't the greatest week. Maybe you need to go back to last week. I'm not sure.
Well, unlike you, I liked Batman Offworld. I thought it was a good conclusion. I liked it.
Jim,
so-
explain to him why Batman Offworld 6 sucks. It's awful. Get it to him, Jim.
I swear.
Hit 'em.
Oh, Dylan. Yeah. Now, the thing is, and you have to separate it. And maybe I would read it later, but after that delay, to have something that it's like the idea of taking 6 months to rush something, but it just was weird. But with that, there's some cool moments. But I think that, namely, they set up the Whisper and Wrath, the Black Sun twins. You set them up as too big a threat to then have them be defeated very simply. But it was a back god moment.
Dylan.
It was a back
It
god
sucked.
moment. but
And they ruined Punchbot while they were at it. He's not even
Man.
Punchbot anymore. He lost his whole
That
identity.
bot
And then
doesn't
they made
work.
the one Thanet, or not Thanagarian. She's
yeah,
Tamaranian girl.
Tamaranian, yeah.
She gave her a new fucking captain. She's got a Batman thing. Whatever.
Yeah,
man.
she
Another
got
Bat family?
she got inspired
Yeah.
by Batman. Now
Yeah,
she's
she
gonna be
did.
out in the cons. Batman's doing something hopeful.
your
He's
own mask.
inspiring
I
people.
just love the idea
Punchbot
that
had an arc. He became something new. This is you talk
Well-
about characters being stuck in a circle. Someone transformed to something. You shit
We-
about
we
it. You
didn't
cry
see
about
though.
it.
Transform into
Wow.
Batman.
the thing we
Yeah.
didn't see though is that when you get Punchbot's arm and then Absolute Wonder Woman attaches it to herself and uses that, we didn't get to see that. But
He uses his oil to do
the
a
thing
spell.
though is one of the funny things is you go and it is the idea of Batman, the myth of Batman being told throughout the universe and things like that. But the idea that Batman just ends up taking down the Black Sun twins. They mention it somewhat, but shit is going to go wrong. I mean, those people are going to wake up the next day, not know what the hell they're supposed to do without any sort of deal. And it's going to be civil war for years. Batman laughs and goes back to Gotham. He's like, when
He
the
did
going
what he
gets,
needed to do.
when the
Dylan.
going gets tough, he's like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not a guy like that. I'm not bureaucrat.
Want to
I'm out.
recommend
It
anything
was
that's
kinda
good,
funny.
Dylan?
It
And
is
my
good.
other recommendation is I just went back and I reread Hush in anticipation for Hush 2. And I still love it. I know a lot of people cry about the writing. I think the writing's good. I've read the
it's
gigantic
fine.
Absolute Edition. It's so cool. The Absolute Edition's sick.
Yeah.
I still love Hush. I'm a big Riddler fan. So yeah, I think Hush
Best
is great.
illustrated
Definitely
Batman story ever.
still holds up. Go read it. And I did not disappoint. The second half's definitely better than the first half though. But I really
Yeah,
liked
it
Should
is.
they
And-
get the Absolute Edition? Should they shell out the 120 or whatever it is?
Yeah, get the Absolute Edition. So I don't know how much it is right now, like if you go on Amazon or something. But I got this from a comic shop used for pretty cheap. I think I got it for like $40. But yeah, it's so good. The Absolute format is cool, and I love the simplicity of Hush's design. A mummy in a trench coat with dual pistols is just the coolest thing. He looks so cool.
Anything else people need to be looking out for, whether it be video games, streaming, YouTube's, anything?
Yeah, I got videos always coming out. Like I said, I just did my Spider-Man video for Arkham Knight and talked about what's going on with Spider-Man currently. So that was fun, and I'm always working on stuff. So I'll have more videos out this week soon. So check it out.
Very nice. Sully, are you recommending any comic books?
Kinda. At
It's
least
gonna
I
be hard.
spent
You reckon Absolute
$42.
Batman or Superman this week?
Oh gosh, it might come off my pull list. I swear. I spent about $40 odd at my local comic book shop this week because they had a sale going on, 30% off, and I made out like a bandit. But pick of the week is Sacrificers 14. Great art, great colors, great story. If don't sleep on Sacrificers.
Cool letters
Also on my pull list this week is Absolute Superman, and this book is no fun. This book is it's well drawn. It's packed with action, but where's the superheroics in this? And look at the ad on the back of this for the Puppy Bowl. So I am rooting for the Shih Tzu. I'm on Team Shih Tzu or
they
team
need to bring back Bud Bowl. I fucking used to bet on that as a kid, real money.
Well, at least we're getting bikinis in the Carl Jr. ad. So, America is healing. But, I'll give it one more issue because it's a 5-issue arc. But after that, I might drop this and say I'm done with you. But I got something I've been looking forward to getting for a while. Old Star Wars fans. I got this for 30% off, and it's got a $40 cover price. So I picked her up for $28. This is the Epic Collection from Marvel. This is the newspaper strips, Volume 2, from 1977 to about, I think, 81. There was a Star Wars newspaper funny, and this collects them all. It's kind of reformatted into, comic book format. It was released in the early 90s as classic Star Wars, but it's a hidden tale of what goes on between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. That is not the Marvel comic books. It's not a reprint of the Marvel comic books. It's its own thing. And I grew up on this. So I'm like really psyched to have both of these. I also picked this up for in the $5 bin. This is Marvel did movie adaptations for like everything in the early 80s. Like Bill Sienkiewicz did Dune. You had Last Starfighter, Battlestar Galactica, all of these different movies, and Blade Runner. There's 2 issues. Al Williamson does the art. It's really photorealistic. Good stuff. I love this cover. This is a really interesting point. People don't pick up on this, but as soon as Harrison Ford falls, he spits in Rutger Hauer's face. And that's why Rutger Hauer, Batty, saves him. And because he's amazed with this little human. And that's why I think Deckard's not a replicant as well. And and thank you so much. A wonderful comic book style conversation again here at the Comics Aficionados. That's right. Get your t-shirt.
If you like Blade Runner, before Titan did Conan the Barbarian, they did a series of Blade Runner comic books set in the future and everything.
Really?
And there's some really good stuff out there, actually. That Titan did.
I'll give it a peek.
You should. There's some really good ones out there. I think, is Gabe gone? Did he abandon us?
No, I'm still here.
Are you recommending a book?
Of course. No, of course. Initially, shameless plug. Please follow us on Comical Opinions and also Weird Science DC Comics and Weird Science Marvel Comics. Your follow is appreciated. Thank you very much. As far as recommendations for this week, nothing from Marvel and DC because they both kind of mediocre at best is the only way I can put it. But as far as something that you could read, I think you'll enjoy, we have Terror and Fury #2 from Zenescope. That's using public domain characters, redoing them into modern iterations. That's Black Death and Miss Fury. And they're pitted against a bunch of vampires. So that's a kind of interesting read. The first issue was good. The second issue, I think, is even a little bit better. So check that out. We also have Savage Tales, the Winter 2025 special. That is an anthology book of most of Dynamite's, leading characters, just with one and done stories, and they're all pretty decent. So I think you'll enjoy that. And I'm going to go with Sully on this one. Sacrificers #14. The first half is sedate. And then when you get to the midpoint, it smacks you in the mouth. It really smacks you in the mouth with some pretty horrific violence. So those are the 3 recommendations for me this week. And please follow along at Comical Opinions. Thank you.
Very nice. And the Blade Runner comic book I was talking about is Blade Runner 2019. If you're looking for a specific title, there's also 2029 and 2039.
They're pretty
good.
From Titan. Good one. From Titan.
From Titan Comics. And say hello to Jimmy for us. Jimmy the cat, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Named after Jimmy Olsen. All right, Jim, you and I did the Hot or Not podcast. You did not recommend a single book. Are you going to have to go in a time machine to find a recommendation?
I might. I do think the cat was named after me. But the idea of I'm going to go with the manga. It's a weird manga. It's Sirens Won't Sing for You. It's just a quirky little title. You could read it for free on Manga Plus. But me and you did the show. I did not recommend anything. And go with the deal of everything that we talked about and people saying about buying digital and buying, I've only really ever bought like 2 issues of a actual print comic. I'm fully digital. It is something that helps out when you're doing, podcasts and things like that as well. But I do love the digital format. I don't mind it at all. My sight is terrible. I like reading at night with the tablet and things like that. But Sirens Won't Sing for You is just like a funny, quirky little deal. And like I said, you can go on Manga Plus if you look that up and read it. But I do want to ask, because in the comments, Virtual Reality Fitness actually ended up saying Ultimates 9 is good. And I want to know if that's a joke, because it really seems like it would be, because that book was garbage, as the French say.
Garbanzo beans.
Garbage, it was terrible. And that guy, Dennis Camp needs to wash his hair. I just want to mention that one more. He looks like he stinks. But the comics were tough this week. They were really tough this week. And also, don't think that at any point that Kylo Ren book was anything to do with Darth Vader. Don't read that. That was bad. So.
Somebody mentioned Steam and Teen Saturday Morning Adventures. That's the only book I recommended. That's why there won't be a best of the week. But Jim and I do have a Super Bowl preview coming up on the YouTube channel, so be looking out for that one. No. But I did enjoy Saturday Morning Adventures, but I can't justify doing an entire video just for one comic book to recommend this week. Last but not least, Doc is probably going to go the Wayback Machine, because the only new comic book he read this week was a 0 out of 10. Awful.
Yeah, we read Shazam number 20, and when I've said in the past that certain things are a war crime, I don't think this was a war crime. I think this was just actually criminal behavior.
You have to see the video coming up on Monday.
It is.
Worst of the week.
So yeah, I'm definitely not recommending that. Instead, well, since our friend Rob Liefeld got screwed so badly by Marvel and shit on, let's go and raise the value of some back issues, including his 2-issue run of issue 154 and 154 and 155. This is issue 155 of Wolverine, with Rob doing story and interiors and cover. Good fun, Deadpool versus Wolverine story. And a little bit of an homage to what issue of Incredible Hulk is that? 340? I think it's 340. A little bit of an homage to Hulk 340. But yeah, so go find this. You can find it at your back issue store. It is it might be a little pricey. I think it was normally like $20-25. It might be up more, it might be down. I honestly don't know. I bought this one a while ago. But 154 and 155. Then we will go with some Amazing Spider-Man, especially during the Maximum Carnage era. It's Carnage and it's Spider-Man. I mean, really. I think this is Mark Bagley. Yeah, it's Bagley art. And this one has Deadpool and Captain America, or I'm sorry, not Deadpool. Venom, Captain America, Deathlock, all kind of teaming up here. Great fun story. Maximum Carnage was, it was one of their more ambitiously overwrought 90s crossovers, but it was a good fun story. And then finally, we will go with a personal favorite of mine, X-Men 100, but this is the, let's see if you can, let's get rid of the glare. Yep, it's a 30-cent variant. This was it's normally a 25-cent book, but I think, actually, Wes, it would have been in the Kansas City market. They did 30-cent variants to test whether or not they could sell the book for 5 cents extra. And so it's a price variant. They did it for $98, $99, and $100. And then about 6 months later, for $104, $105, and $106, they did another 30 to 35 cent jump. So and they test marketed those as well in a limited market. But yeah, so X-Men 100, old X-Men versus new X-Men. Good fun story. I recommend you go and try to find yourself a copy.
Well, very, very nice. And I recommend everybody root for the Kansas City Chiefs. Tomorrow, during the Super Bowl, got a big game coming up. And if the Eagles win, they will burn their city to the ground. We do not need another city.
If they lose,
Either
they will
way,
burn the
yeah.
city to the ground.
Just go Eagles.
Elgles.
Yeah, you know.
Team Shih Tzu in the Puppy Bowl. Team Shih Tzu. Woo!
I mean, if you would like a geek's perspective on the game, Jim and I have a video coming up in about 4.5 hours.
Hey, I just look at it like this. I mean, come on. Does anybody want to root for Philly to win anything ever?
No, that's why we're awesome. And Kelchi ends up asking about Taylor Swift. We do talk about Taylor Swift a bit in the video, right? So we talk about it all. We talk about it all. We do.
We did the best that we could. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. This was a really great show, and I appreciate everybody joining us. It was a good time.
Go me.